Pain. Her head was exploding with pain, as if her body had been ran over by a car. Spasms of pain racked her body, extremely tortuous. Bailey Huangzhuang struggled to open her eyes, but when she glimpsed at the strange things around her, she completely woke up. Where is this place? Her eyes were dark and bottomless like a well, flashing with wisdom. She could clearly remember when she found the mysterious ring in the phoenix's nest, and how her blood had accidentally dripped on its surface. Then suddenly, a wind blew as the world around her turned colorful, right before she woke up in this strange place. Bailey Huangzhuang frowned. Her hands clutched her head as countless memories, some unfamiliar, others familiar, emerged in her mind, almost overloading it. A few moments later, her splitting headache slowly faded away. The confusion in Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes had vanished, but the shock in her heart could not be any greater. I've actually crossed worlds. Bailey Huangzhuang looked at herself with amazement. Furthermore, I've passed through a millennium in the Xingxue continent. She was originally Xingxue continent's youngest aristocratic family head, with peerless talent and her reputation well known across the world. But she didn't expect that because of a ring, her soul would pass through 1,000 years on the Xingxue continent into the body of a general's trash of a daughter. Coincidentally, this young lady was also called Bailey Huangzhuang. It's a pity though, as the young miss of the general didn't have her father's love, and her birth mother died at young. Fortunately, she had an engagement with the crown prince, and by doing such she maintained her status. But the young miss never would have predicted that she would suddenly turn blind 3 months ago, losing the qualifications to become the empress. When the emperor announced that the marriage would be abolished yesterday, Bailey Huangzhuang simply couldn't take it, and chose to commit suicide by swallowing gold. Speaking of it, some of the credit of this suicide also belongs to Bailey Huangzhuang's good older sister, Bailey Yuyan. Yesterday, with the pretense of comforting her, Bailey Yuyan had spoken vicious words, aggravating Bailey Huangzhuang even more. It was very likely that her own blindness was connected with Bailey Yuyan. What broken ring? Bailey Huangzhuang cursed angrily. From the stunningly talented young family head, to a waist of a general's daughter, the gap really isn't small, ah. Bailey Huangzhuang sighed and lowered her head. Suddenly, her eyes widened, the mysterious black ring was right there, in her hand. How? How could this be? Bailey Huangzhuang was stunned, touching the ring gently. Had she and the ring passed through together? In this moment, a string of fine footsteps sounded just outside the door, followed by the figure of a man and woman cuddling together as they entered Bailey Huangzhuang's sight. This pair, man and woman, were none other than Bailey Yuyan and the crown prince, Xianyuan Huan. Bailey Yuyan was different from Bailey Huangzhuang, a waste. Her innate talent was outstanding, earning her some fame despite being so young. Therefore, the general must have already long planned to let Bailey Yuyan replace her as the future empress. When the two saw Bailey Huangzhuang sitting on the bed, alive, their faces flashed with a trace of surprise. They've clearly heard the maid report that Bailey Huangzhuang was no longer breathing, so why isn't she dead? Good little sister, how could you fret so much over such little trifles? Suicide, you actually tried to commit suicide. Bailey Yuyan rushed over to Bailey Huangzhuang's side. Although her face appeared was full of warmth and loving care, her eyes were actually filled with deep disgust. Yesterday, she had said so much just to get her to commit suicide. When she heard the report this morning, her heart was delighted. But she didn't expect that this waste still haven't died. Trash really is trash. Bailey Huangzhuang can't even kill herself properly. Next time, she'll give her a hand. Bailey Huangzhuang sneered in her heart, but acted just as before, pretending to be blind as she called out in a weak voice, "Sister." Xianyuan Huan pulled Bailey Yuyan back, his eyes flashing with wanton lewdness as he smiled. His hands roamed her body wildly. "Yuyan, that trash is free to die, so why do you care so much about what she did?" If it wasn't for Yuyan shouting at him to come and see her together, he never would have wanted to even glance at such trash. For he, the dignified crown prince, to have such a fiancé, who knew how many people had silently ridiculed him behind his back. When the marriage was absolved, he had thought that he finally had no need to see that trash. But he didn't think that this woman would have actually tried to commit suicide. Regarding this kind of woman who cries first, cause trouble second, and hangs oneself third, he loathes the most, women who try to use this method to steal his love. Bailey Yuyan's face held a happy smile as she let Xian Yuan Huan run amok on her body, but her mouth continued to speak hypocritical words. Your Majesty, the Crown Prince, Huang Zhuang is still my sister. How could I let her do such a foolish thing? Yuyan, you're so kind. I really do love you. Xian Yuan Huan smiled brightly, playing so wantonly right in front of the blind Bailey. Huang Zhuang's face really gives an indescribable sense of pleasure. Bailey Yuyan chuckled in her heart, moving with Xian Yuan Huan's hands as she continued to play the role of a good older sister. Crown Prince, if you say that, Huang Zhuang will be sad. Why do you have so many worries? Xian Yuan Huan looked disdainfully at Bailey Huang Zhuang. If it wasn't for the fact that Bailey Huang Zhuang was the general household's young miss, I never would have had an arranged marriage with her. I like you, Yuyan, ah. Bailey Huang Zhuang looked at the filthy drama playing out in front of her as her heart sneered unceasingly. This Bailey Yuyan really has no face. Doing such in front of someone suicidal, and to even be shameless enough to make up such a play, these two people really are amazing, ah. Fortunately the real Bailey Huang Zhuang is dead, otherwise if she were to see such a drama, afraid that she might attempt suicide again. Bailey Huang Zhuang inspected the present Xian Yuan Huan before sighing in her heart. The original Bailey Huang Zhuang really adored him in vain. In her opinion, this guy is simply like a lecherous bag of hay, making one feel sick to their stomachs. If it wasn't for the fact that this body still hasn't recovered, she would let this pair of adolescents know why the flowers are so red. Xian Yuan Huan smiled lasciviously, and hoisted Bailey Yuyan up as they continued to kiss, walking towards Bailey Huang Zhuang. Obviously, he wanted to let Bailey Huang Zhuang sense everything closely. Bailey Huang Zhuang's eyes gleamed with ridicule and loathing as she easily picked up a nearby pearl from a hair decoration, throwing it under Xian Yuan Huan's feet, leaving no trace. Bang! Xian Yuan Huan stepped on the pearl, his whole body falling to the floor as he pushed Bailey Yuyan away from him. Ah! Bailey Yuyan screamed as her face directly hit the bed. Blood flowed freely from her nose as her pretty face turned into an ugly bruised purple. Xian Yuan Huan fell flat on his face, his whole body splayed out as he twitched. Now, how could he ever be so arrogant like before? Sister, are you okay? Bailey Huang Zhuang sneered, but her voice was panicked as she stared out blankly. Xian Yuan Huan quickly stood up, embarrassed before reaching out a hand to help Bailey Yuyan. But just as he stepped forward, at the foot of the bed, he tripped and fell forward. Bang! A dull sound rang out, and Xian Yuan Huan also hit his head heavily on the bed. Kacha! And a crisp sound rang out in the air. Xian Yuan Huan's nose had unluckily collided with the edge of the bed, breaking the bone as he released a blood-curdling scream, "Ah!" A gleam of ridicule emerged from Bailey Huang Zhuang's eyes. Since you've killed the previous Bailey Huang Zhuang, then let's begin by having you kneel down as interest. Xian Yuan Huan painfully clutched his nose, blood and gurgling noises flowed out and escaped from his fingers. The pain was so intense that his eyes were hit with spurts of dizziness. Your Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, are you okay? Bailey Yuyan's pig-like face was pale with fear as she hastily got up, looking worriedly at Xian Yuan Huan. Two pig-like faces and 4 trails of blood out from the nostril, completely the same. The more you look, the funnier it seems. Damn it! Xian Yuan Huan cursed loudly and glared venomously at Bailey Huang Zhuang, one hand reaching forward to choke her neck. Bailey Huang Zhuang, did you do this? Bailey Huang Zhuang's hands feebly pulled on his hand which was choking her neck, her face blank and innocent. Your Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, I really didn't do anything. Xian Yuan Huan's anger bubbled. But he knew that Bailey Huangzhuang was no more than a piece of blind trash who couldn't have done anything, and angrily threw her, growling, "Unlucky." Bailey Huangzhuang clutched her neck and gasped for breath, speaking unevenly, You feel that bad luck too? Earlier, I heard that this courtyard was haunted, I guess it's true, huh? Bailey Yuyan was stunned. What do you mean? Since I was young, there has been a lot of strange things happening in this courtyard. This sort of ghost-tripping thing is extremely common. In my opinion, I do not think that this mysterious tripping is because of this haunted courtyard. With that said, Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes lit up. Her face shined with hope as she begged. Sister, could you please help me by telling father about this situation and ask him to change my residence for me? When she heard those words, Bailey Yuyan's demeanor changed. Anywhere in the general house was fine, after all, the only haunted courtyard was the one that Bailey Huangzhuang resided in. This really is a strange existence. Every time she went in, she felt a cold, unnatural feeling. It was possible that this place really was a ghost house. How wonderful. It seems like she has even less things she needs to do in the future. However, what she really wanted right now was for Bailey Huangzhuang to not switch. How could she help her change courtyards? Sister, I will try and mention it to our father. You should also know of our father's temper, whether or not it will work I cannot guarantee. Bailey Yuyan flushed, embarrassed, her voice seemingly gentle and helpless. Listening to Bailey Yuyan's hypocritical, empty words made Bailey Huangzhuang sneer in her heart. She was smart, so she sinisterly pushed all the problems towards the general while keeping a gentle and kind facade in front of Xianyuan Huan. Yuyan, you're still worrying about what this trash does? Xianyuan Huan looked immensely disgusted. Let's go. Xianyuan Huan really just didn't want to stay in this place a second longer. His dignity had never sunk so low. But, the most important thing was the unbearable, sharp pain in the bridge of his nose. When she knew the two had left, Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes gleamed with cold light. Since she is now occupying this body, she's the general's young miss, Bailey Huangzhuang. Bailey Yuyan and Xianyuan Huan had caused her so much pain, now it was time for her to pay them back 1,000 times. The bitterness she has suffered today, she will collect it as interest in the future. They shall know that she is Bailey Huangzhuang, and she will never be bullied. Bailey Huangzhuang inspected the state of her body. When she was only 5 years old, it was concluded that she was a trash, her dantian completely ruined. But when she examined her body just now, her destroyed dantian region at some unknown time was actually completely healed. Although she didn't know why, it was definitely a great blessing for her. Only by getting stronger as soon as possible could she change her current passive situation. Bailey Huangzhuang believed that after what happened today, Bailey Yuyan and Xianyuan Huan wouldn't dare to bother her for some time. But just as Bailey Huangzhuang was about to start cultivating, a tender voice suddenly sounded in her ear, that Xianyuan Huan is really too disgusting. I think that Bailey Yuyan is even more shameless. The tender and high-pitched cry was followed by a sharp voice. The two voices seemed to sound from nowhere as Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes widened in surprise. Disregarding her, there was nobody else in the entire courtyard. Where could the two boys' voices come from? Who are you? Bailey Huangzhuang frowned, her clear eyes calmly surveying the room. However, the question Bailey Huangzhuang asked was like she had asked the sea, giving no reply. The two boys continued to argue intensely, like they didn't hear her words. I say Xianyuan Huan is more disgusting. Bailey Yuyan is even more annoying. I hate Xianyuan Huan. I hate Bailey Yuyan. Bailey Huangzhuang raised her voice, interrupting the two boys, stop arguing. You two are both annoying. Humph. HMPTH. The two boys snorted resentfully, dissatisfied as they stopped arguing. Who are you? Come out. Bailey Huangzhuang's voice was cold. A long while, and the delicate, tender voice answered, its tone pouty and dissatisfied, Master, how could you be so terrible, ah. Exactly, if Master doesn't call us out, then how could we come out? Another voice chimed in. Bailey Huangzhuang's face was doubtful. Master. Call you out. Right. Right. Where are you? Bailey Huangzhuang asked. We're in the primordial chaos ring on Master's hand. Immediately, Bailey Huangzhuang turned and stared intently at the ring in her hands. It was because of this ring that she had traveled through time, this ring that was originally called the primordial chaos ring. Master, as long as you gather some spirit power inside the ring, you'll be able to enter the ring's space at will. Hearing that, Bailey Huangzhuang immediately separated a wisp of spirit power, cautiously approaching the primordial chaos ring. Just then, her mind felt like it was shaken violently, entering the brand new, never-before-seen space. A giant, majestic monochrome palace entered her eyes, the black and white colors blending together fluidly as its divine aura permeated through the air. Sincerity, change, dignity, respect. It made anyone who saw it revere from the bottom of their hearts. The sleek and glossy palace contrasted against Bailey Huangzhuang's figure. Standing in front of the gigantic, monochrome palace, she was no more than an ant. Insignificant and powerless. Her phoenix eyes, black like ink, glowed with admiration and surprise as Bailey Huangzhuang praised, "Is this really the world inside the primordial chaos ring? Really impressive, ah." For a long time now, she had thought that only a cosmos pouch could have a space, and could only be used as storage. She never knew that a piece of jewelry could have contained such a humongous space inside. Rumble. The massive gates slowly opened, seemingly like they haven't been touched for thousands of years, giving people an indescribably shocking feeling. Bailey Huangzhuang slowly entered, to see a grand and magnificent palace hall appear in front of her. The palace hall was carved with mysterious and exquisite designs. It gave off profound and mythical feelings, deserted like a small square. Two bold colors, black and white, blended together to create an unspeakable sense of harmony. Both sides of the palace hall had two separate passages that led to the rear area. At that time, the familiar young and delicate voice rang out, "Master! Master!" Bailey Huangzhuang looked up in the direction of the sound, only to see two unidentifiable fluffy objects, one black, and the other white, rolling towards her. That's right. They rolled towards her. Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes widened as she examined the two boys carefully, her expression suddenly turning brilliant. Two balls of fluff appeared in front of Bailey Huangzhuang, one black and the other white. Their whole bodies were made of soft fur, making one think that it was a mere fur ornament or decoration at first glance. But if they were to look closer, they'd be able to discover that it actually had two eyes and a nose. It was in fact, a living creature. Currently, two pairs of eyes, each huge like a grape, peered up at her, blinking curiously. "Master!" The white ball cried while affectionately rubbing against Bailey Huangzhuang's leg. The black fluff ball, not wanting to be outdone, immediately started rubbing against her other leg, calling, "Master." The white fluff eyed the black one disapprovingly. "It's my master. My master." The black one cried. Watching the two fluff balls argue, Bailey Huangzhuang decided to interrupt. "Can't one of you guys tell me what exactly this primordial chaos ring is and what it does?" "I can." The white fluff gave a little jump, saying, "The primordial chaos ring is an ancient artifact that appeared when the Xingxua continent was first created, and can make the owner unrivaled in the world." "Then what happened with me passing through time then? Is it related to the primordial chaos ring?" The black fluff jumped a little too, saying, "By the time the owner obtains the primordial chaos ring, the owner's blood has been remembered. However, after a long period of time, the ring may no longer remember the owner. When there are too many energy fluctuations, it may cause a rift through space and time, and only then may the owner pass through." As the two fluff balls struggled to one-up each other in their answers, Bailey Huangzhuang gradually began to discover the roots of why she'd passed through time and space. She did not expect to find that this primordial chaos ring was actually such a great benefit to her. Whoever becomes the master of the primordial chaos ring can become peerless in this world. She had just so happened to find the primordial chaos ring, and with the blood that accidentally fell on the ring, she had been recognized as the master of the primordial chaos ring. By chance, a rift had randomly opened and she was transported through space and time to become the young miss of the general's household. She had heard legends of those powerful experts at the world's apex leaving behind their precious heritage or artifacts, but she'd never expected that one day, an artifact would suddenly appear in front of her. Under the leadership of the black fluff ball and white fluff ball, Bailey Huangzhuang walked through the channel from the palace hall, into a stone room in the rear area. It said that there was a very powerful cultivation technique here. The stone room was empty with nothing but a raised platform in the middle of the room, blooming with hazy black and white light. The two colored lights constantly mingled and entwined, emitting a mysterious aura that unwittingly attracted one's heart. Bailey Huanghang slowly approached the raised platform. Brilliant rays of light flashed inside the hazy glow, surrounding a single merit law scripture. Its cover was black, the body thick and heavy. It emitted dense magical energy. Demonic calling scripture. It was 3 simple words, commonly found everywhere. But here, they seemed to contain boundless power and strength, making people not dare to look at it. With just a glance, Bailey Huangzhuang could easily tell that this was a treasure, a real treasure. With both hands, Bailey Huangzhuang immediately seized the demonic calling scripture. The second she took the demonic calling scripture away from the stand, the radiant black and white rays that sparkled immediately faded away, no longer flashing vividly. Just by opening the demonic calling scripture, Bailey Huangzhuang could feel her head tingle violently. Bursts of information flooded into her mind, and the terribly painful headache from earlier returned. After nearly half a day, the pain in Bailey Huangzhuang's mind finally began to fade away. The contents of the demonic calling scripture had been firmly imprinted in her mind. She looked again at the demon calling scripture in her hands. The cover had become completely white, and half of the text had vanished. Bailey Huangzhuang then left the primordial chaos ring. Unwilling to be left behind, the 2 black and white fluff balls ran after her. Ignoring the 2 fluff balls' feelings, Bailey Huangzhuang instructed them that they absolutely cannot leave the elegant daylily pavilion until she finished her closed-door cultivation. Bailey Huangzhuang knew that if someone found out that she comprehended the demon calling scripture, their faces would have surely turned terrified. That is because the demon calling scripture is taboo merit law. Its cultivation speed is far from comparable to normal cultivation techniques, but only the master of the primordial chaos ring could practice it. If other people were to try, there'd be no possibility of succeeding. If they were to force it, they'd only be digging their own grave. Cultivation techniques were divided into 4 grades. The worst was the flow merit law, and the rest, in ascending order, is followed by the star merit law, the moon merit law, and the sun merit law. And the most common technique grade majority of cultivators practice, is the flow merit law. It's well known that, the highest cultivation grade technique is the sun merit law. This demonic calling scripture's grade was like a gambling chip, and was something Bailey Huangzhuang had practically never heard of. Time flashed by. In the blink of an eye, a month had already passed. Bailey Huangzhuang opened the door that hadn't been touched for many weeks. Golden fragments of sun shined on her body, warm and sunny. A graceful, sunny smile bloomed on Bailey Huangzhuang's busy jade-like face as she stretched her waist lazily. The results of going into closed-door cultivation for a month really didn't disappoint her at all. As long as somebody has stepped inside the Hotian boundary, they are considered to be a cultivator. The Hotian boundary divided into 3 realms, namely, Mysterious Earth Realm, Mysterious Aeon Realm, and Mysterious Heaven Realm. Each realm is also divided into 3 states, early stage, intermediate stage, and late stage. A month of closed-door cultivation, and with the demonic calling scripture's help, Bailey Huangzhuang has succeeded in breaking through into the middle stage of the Mysterious Earth Realm. Bailey Yuyan had started cultivating from the early age of 5. Now at 16 years old, she is currently at the late stage of mysterious Earth realm, honored as a great talent. Bailey Huangzhuang's cultivation speed, if this news were to be spread outside, it's unknown how many people would faint from shock. After staying inside for so long, it's time to take a walk. Her black like ink phoenix eyes flashed with helplessness and sorrow. Since the age of 5, she had never been outside the general's household, and had even forgotten what the imperial capital even looked like. Moreover, her cultivation also needs some stuff, so it's better to prepare now. Hearing Bailey Huanghang's words, the twin fluff balls hastily jumped up and rushed towards her. Master, I also want to go. Seeing 2 fluffy bodies zoom in her direction, Bailey Huangzhuang's pupils widened as her body moved rapidly, managing to dodge the 2 furballs. Bang! Bang! The sound of 2 heavy thumps echoed across the room, one black and one white, 2 soft bodies cuddled together as 2 pairs of limpid, watery eyes looked at her tearfully. Bailey Huangzhuang facepalmed. These 2 boys, besides their clinginess to her, they also have a certain kill technique, acting cute. In this month, she had deeply felt that these 2 boys were sent by heaven to become her nemesis. Rolling back and forth whilst acting spoiled was fine, but acting cute with those teary eyes was absolutely deadly. Do you really want to go? Bailey Huangzhuang asked reluctantly. The 2 fluff balls looked like chickens as they nodded their heads non-stop. The white fluff ball nodded too heavily, rolling his entire body in circles. When he realized he was rolling in circles, he quickly rolled back to his original spot and continued to nod. Maybe. The 2 fluff balls opened their eyes wide. The fact that Bailey Huangzhuang actually didn't respond immediately to their crying made them look at her very differently. Seeing the 2 fluff balls stare at her so intently, Bailey Huangzhuang frowned prettily. You 2 boys both look like exotic flowers. If you guys come with me, everybody would stare at you, ah. If by chance, someone was to be interested in you 2 and wanted to rob me, then I'd be almost powerless to stop them. Bailey Huangzhuang rubbed her chin thoughtfully. If it's that, then we have a way. The black fluff ball jumped at the chance to speak. Just as he said that, Bailey Huangzhuang was amazed to see the 2 black and white fluff balls shrink into the sizes of 2 beads. They jumped onto her head, impossible to find. Bailey Huangzhuang's mouth turned into the shape of an O. She never knew that the 2 boys had such a skill. In a way, it really makes things so much more convenient. Then you 2 can come with me outside as long as you don't cause chaos. Also, only speak with spiritual messages, and not aloud. Bailey Huangzhuang said urgently. If by any chance, somebody heard the 2 on her head speaking, then she'd be considered a monster, ah. Understood. The black fluff ball and the white fluff ball nodded their heads immediately. They'd do anything to go outside and play. Hearing the 2 boys settle down, Bailey Huangzhuang smiled pleasantly. With those 2 around, it seems like it'll be lively today. The Imperial City. The horde of citizens were nearly 10 li long as they flocked the streets, both sides filled with stalls. They sold all kinds of stuff, voices reverberating throughout the street. Walking in the busy streets, Bailey Huangzhuang couldn't help but almost imagine that of her life before she became the general household's young miss. It's just that, the 2 constantly cheering boys on her head clearly reminded her that she was no longer the Bailey Huangzhuang of 1,000 years ago. Say, how about I give you 2 a name? Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes twinkled with light. The 2 boys are always together, so it'd get really confusing without a name later on. The 2 fluff balls glanced at each other before looking eagerly at Bailey Huangzhuang. They still didn't have names yet. Black fluff ball will be called Little White. Her smile was filled with satisfaction. White fluff ball's name is Little Black. The original eager look in the 2's eyes instantly diffused into contempt. So stupid. I am white, so why do you want to call me Little Black? Ah. The white fluff ball protested. Bailey Huangzhuang raised her brow, in order to be fair. You see, Black Fluff Ball probably wanted to be white, and deep down, your heart also probably wanted to be black. So I made such a name, it was perfect. A breathtakingly beautiful smile bloomed on Bailey Huangzhuang's face. She's such a fair and just master, ah. No. The Black Fluff Ball joined in the protest, I don't want to be called Little White. Protesting is invalid. A smile still sat on Bailey Huangzhuang's lips as she easily ignored the two boys' complaints. She really admired her own ingenuity, the names she chose were really too great, ah. Bailey Huangzhuang walked without a care in the world when a burst of noise came from in front of her, attracting her attention. Quickly, look. Prince Chen is being bullied. Ah, this Prince Chen really has bad luck. He had such handsome looks but was born with both legs crippled. Now he can even be so easily bullied by the crown prince. Prince Chen has never been loved by the emperor, this is a well-known fact. Who let his fate be so bad, to be the emperor's illegitimate child? The tones that all carried a slight sense of regret rang out 3 times, easily traveling into Bailey Huangzhuang's ears. Prince Chen. Illegitimate child? Those words circled in Bailey Huangzhuang's head. If it's Prince Chen, then she also has some knowledge about him. If she was one of the biggest jokes the people liked to gossip about, then Prince Chen was the second joke. 3 years ago, the present emperor had suddenly made an unknown common man a prince, giving rise to huge waves in the court. This man was Bewitching. Even though the court officers all protested, the emperor still insisted on acting as willfully as before and made the man a prince, even knowing that he was a cripple. For a long time, rumors everywhere speculated that Prince Bewitching must have been the emperor's illegitimate child. Otherwise, why would he confer the title of prince to an in contempt cripple? But the emperor, despite being aware of this rumor, chose not to step forward and explain, but on the contrary, seemed to silently acknowledge it. So over time, everybody started to silently acknowledge Prince Chen as such too. Since the emperor had made Prince Chen a prince so brazenly, it was believed that he must have been heavily doted on by the emperor. But although his first year was luxurious, the following years he got less and less as his status plummeted. Bailey Huangzhuang slowly approached the noisy crowd. It could be due to them being fellow sufferers in her mind, or also because her heart held a trace of curiosity about this Prince Chen. After all, in this huge imperial city, the tragedy in her life couldn't be compared to anyone else's, but Bewitching's. Walking amongst the crowd, Bailey Huangzhuang looked at the target that held the circle's attention. On the 3rd floor of the Drunken Immortal Pavilion, stood 2 figures. With just a glance, Bailey Huangzhuang could see a figure she absolutely loathed. Xianyuan Huan. Xianyuan Huan's face was bossy as he looked disdainfully at the pale, golden-robed figure in front of him. Bewitching, say, if I wasn't careful and accidentally knocked you down, pushing you off from the 3rd floor of this building, then what would you do? Xianyuan Huan's face held a sarcastic sneer, his sardonic attitude like he was treating Bewitching as a joke. Bailey Huangzhuang looked at the back of the pale, golden-robed figure. This must be Bewitching, no doubt. If Prince wants to push, then what can I do? His light voice was faintly warm from alcohol, held a tinge of ridicule, like a refreshing cool breeze that stroked the heart, appearing free and indifferent. Xianyuan Huan frowned when he saw his calm face. For a moment, he couldn't even tell who was doing the actual bullying. He was the most disgusted by Bewitching's indifferent appearance, as if nothing could ever affect him, acting like he was so high, when he was actually just a clown, he'll let him see how much of a joke he really was. Big brother, how can trash act this way? The second prince, Xianyuan Jing, hadn't noticed the rising tension between Xianyuan Huan and Bewitching yet, speaking with a smile, why don't we just push him off already? Xianyuan Jing had just stopped speaking when he suddenly pretended to fall forward, his entire body stumbling towards Bewitching. His hands were out, both pushing Bewitching, who stumbled, and fell past the railing. You could only hear the railing creak, followed by a golden light falling from the third story of the building. Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes gleamed as she stared. This Xianyuan Huan really is good for nothing. Both of Dibei Chen's legs were already crippled, but it seems that Xianyuan Huan still wouldn't let him off. A gleam of ridicule appeared in Bailey Huangzhuang's deep black eyes, so it seemed that Xianyuan Huan's favorite thing to do is to kick a person when it's down, huh? Whether it's her, or Dibei Chen, Xianyuan Huan still isn't willing to let off. Despicable, shameless. Many of the onlookers averted their eyes. Dibei Chen really was pitiful, but they were just commoners, so what could they do? However, the expected loud thump wasn't heard, but instead, a loud cry for help. "Ah, big brother, help me." The voice trembled, full of panic and fear. It was the voice of the second prince, Xianyuan Jing. Everybody looked at the top of the restaurant. Their hearts all held a certain doubt as they stared. At the moment, Xianyuan Jing was hanging off of the broken railing, caught in between the second floor and the third floor. Too scared to move, he could only scream for help. Ha! It was unknown who laughed first, but everybody couldn't help but laugh loudly. As the second prince hung from the railing, parts of his clothing had been torn, revealing his snow-white ass, arousing ridicule among the crowd. The second prince's ass is so white, ah! Amongst the crowd, somebody spoke quietly, bringing around another bout of laughter. Ha! Today we can see the ass of the royal family, it's nothing different. Every day, Xianyuan Jing was always arrogant and despotic. Things like him bullying citizens in the streets were very common, so when they got to see the rare scene of Xianyuan Jing getting humiliated, the citizens all felt a burst of happiness. Hearing this, Xianyuan Jing felt his ass turn cold as he hurriedly tried to cover his behind with his hands. But when he tried to let go of the railing and cover himself, his whole body slid down little by little. He no longer tried to cover himself, and could only scream at Xianyuan Huan for help. Xianyuan Huan's face was also very ugly. He originally wanted to insult Dibei Chen some more, but he'd never thought that Xianyuan Jing would actually be so foolish and lose him some face. With no other option, Xianyuan Huan impatiently helped Xianyuan Jing back up. Now, the crowd turned to look at Dibei Chen, and suddenly, their expression all turned weird. This is because when Dibei Chen fell to the ground, who knows when, 2 round, fluffy balls got rolled under him. The 2 fluff balls had easily stopped Dibei Chen's fall, leaving him unharmed. The idiom, to try and steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice that was used to lure it, everybody here today had suddenly gained a great understanding. What the hell? Xianyuan Huan spat, his voice angry. Whose balls are these? His voice had just sounded when a white figure stepped out of the crowd. Her clear beautiful face rippled with a faint, indifferent smile. My apologies, I had just bought 2 soft cushions, but I couldn't catch the packaging balls as it rolled down. I hope that sir doesn't take offense. Under the blazing sun, her solitary white figure was dyed with a touch of gold. Her elegant face was like a teal lily, fresh and moving. The woman was wearing a long white dress, highlighting her thin figure as her hair flowed freely like a waterfall. A few strands of hair curled by her cheeks, giving off a sense of indifference and laziness. Slender, willow-like eyebrows, gentle and moving. A pair of phoenix eyes as clear and brilliant as colored glass. Her lips were the color of cinnabar, complementing her smooth, white skin, making people sigh deeply, reminded of a peerless talent and unmatched beauty. Xianyuan Huan stared at her slightly familiar face, puzzled. How could this woman look like Bailey Huangzhuang so much? What's your name? Xianyuan Huan asked. Huangzhuang. The similar name only gave Xianyuan Huan more doubts, but after looking closely, all the doubts in his heart were swept away. Although this woman Huangzhuang and Bailey Huangzhuang shared some resemblance, whether it was temperament or other things, they were all far from comparable to Bailey Huangzhuang. A glint of greed appeared in Xianyuan Huan's eyes. The woman in front of him was simply even more beautiful than the acclaimed #1 beauty in the imperial city, Bailey Yuyan. If he can get her, then who knows how many people would envy him. Bailey Huangzhuang's deep black eyes glowed with light. Sure enough, just as she had expected, Xian Yuanhuan didn't recognize her. In a month's time, her appearance had changed a lot. In the general's household she'd previously been subjected to a lot of abuse, and since her marriage was broken, the food quality has been getting worse and worse. Combined with her sorrow, her whole body became yellow and thin, ugly. After a month of cultivating, her skin had rounded out, and her temperament and looks both had a drastic change from before. She believed that even if Bailey Yuyan saw her right now, she'd still have a hard time believing that it was actually her, Bailey Huangzhuang. She quickly walked to Dibei Chen's side. Right now, the black and white fluff balls complained in her ears non-stop. They hadn't expected that on their first day out, Bailey Huangzhuang would use them as a landing pad. Sir, my cushion saved you. You should. Bailey Huangzhuang hadn't finished speaking when the golden figures back in front of her suddenly turned, and a beautiful face appeared in front of her. With a single glance, Bailey Huangzhuang suddenly stopped speaking. Even though she'd heard that Prince Chen's handsomeness was unrivaled, when seeing it for the first time, there was still a heavy sense of shock. The man's facial features were beautiful, eyes, nose, lips all perfect to the extreme. His eyes rippled like shining moonlight, bright and clear. The warm, bewitching smile blooming on his face was unparalleled, unbelievably handsome. He was like an alluring god, just one glance would make you unable to forget him, imprinted in your heart. His body dressed in a golden brocade robe. Just the honorable light in his eyes made his temperament far better than Xian Yuanhuan and the others. Girl, thank you for the cushion. His voice was warm and pleasant. Dibei Chen lightly smiled and looked at Bailey Huangzhuang, a stunned look quickly flickering past his dark, obsidian-like eyes. Bailey Huangzhuang quickly recovered. Despite falling from the third floor, Dibei Chen was still so calm. It seems that she had underestimated him too much. 5 fingers stuck out as Bailey Huangzhuang's face held a bright, sunny smile. Sir, however the outcome is that my cushion saved your life. That being so, shouldn't you repay me? 100 gold coins. Hearing this, Dibei Chen's eyes exposed a trace of cunningness, his handsome face serious. Girl, please do me a favor. Bailey Huangzhuang had some doubts, what kind of stuff could he be busy in to ask for help? But a moment later, the doubts in Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes turned into surprise. Dibei Chen had laid on the ground, saying, Girl can fall, and I'll be your cushion. In return, I won't have to owe you anything. Bailey Huangzhuang's mouth twitched. Who has nothing to do but to jump off a 3rd-story building, ah. This man had a handsome appearance, but was actually a cunning rogue, ah. You are at least a prince, so you won't want to renege on a debt, would you now? Bailey Huangzhuang stared into Dibei Chen's eyes. She wanted to take the chance to earn some gold coins, but didn't expect that this guy would be so stingy, and even tried to use such a shameless way to weasel out. Yes. Too shameless. I am definitely not one to renege on a debt. Dibei Chen spoke righteously. Bailey Huangzhuang's face eased somewhat, but Dibei Chen's next words made her want to stomp her foot impulsively. But I don't own anything valuable. Dibei Chen's face was bitter as he thought, would it be better to pay you back with my body? As inadequate as I am, I've got my own uses. Bailey Huangzhuang felt her temples pulse. On the other hand, Dibei Chen lowered his handsome face bashfully, resembling a maiden on her wedding night. Ah. It's only 100 gold coins, surely it's not worth it to sell yourself for that? Bailey Huangzhuang's voice was like the calm before the storm as she forcefully restrained her anger. Dibei Chen nodded shyly, no. My whole body and household is already yours, so why must we continue to talk about money? Talking about money really hurts my feelings. Looking at this kind of Dibei Chen, Bailey Huangzhuang was stupefied. She simply couldn't imagine that such a dignified, imperial prince could actually be this shameless. For only 100 gold coins, he would even stage out such a play, acting cute like a spoiled kid. It seems like the 100 gold coins she'd wanted would be impossible to get. It's my bad luck. Bailey Huangzhuang uttered angrily. It seemed that before she was just swindled by his beautiful face. With that, Bailey Huangzhuang picked up the 2 fluff balls and turned, walking away through the crowd. She didn't want to talk to that guy any longer, otherwise she herself might not be able to stand it and push him down from the 3rd floor herself. Girl, I am considered one of your people, so in any case, you must at least tell me your address. Di Beichen called out from behind her. Hearing that, Bailey Huangzhuang immediately sped up her pace. This guy is either too shameless, or doesn't know what's good. Shameless. This is the most shameless guy I've ever seen. Bailey Huangzhuang's face was dark as she walked angrily through the streets. She was always taking advantage of others, but today she was taken advantage of by Di Beichen, really too hateful. A certain person is also very shameless, first reaching an agreement to let us play outside, but the next moment using us as a cushion, humph. And after using us as a cushion, didn't even give us any yummy foods to eat, even more shameless. Humph. Listening to the 2 fluffballs' complaints, Bailey Huangzhuang smiled awkwardly before adding in, you can't blame me. I had wanted to make 100 gold coins to buy some delicious foods for you, but I didn't think that guy would be so rude to even renege on a debt. Humph. I don't believe you. Little Black shouted. I don't believe you. And Little White echoed. Seeing the 2 boys' sly appearances, a helpless smile appeared on Bailey Huangzhuang's face as she stopped by a street stall to conveniently buy 2 steamed buns, and gave 1 each to the 2 boys. Eat. Looking at the steamed buns in front of them, the 2 pairs of grape-like eyes immediately shined like stars. 2 thin, short hands stretched out from its furry body, the small hands easily catching the steamed buns. Bailey Huangzhuang smiled happily. It seems that these 2 boys really were easy to please. Little White and Little Black had been living in the primordial chaos ring for many years, relying on its power to survive. They both haven't eaten for a long time, so upon coming out, the 2 both had already completely became 2 foodies. After Little White and Little Black finished stuffing themselves with the steamed bun, Bailey Huangzhuang left the unnoticed corner and continued to walk. Master, that shameless guy from earlier isn't simple. Earlier, Little Black had ignored it because he was unhappy with being used as a cushion. But now that he'd eaten, he began to have a serious conversation with Bailey Huangzhuang. Bailey Huangzhuang's brows raised. What do you mean, not simple? That guy's cultivation was very strong, and if I'm not wrong, then his strength should be high as well. However, we don't know why he had deliberately suppressed his cultivation, Little White explained. Although her phoenix eyes narrowed, these findings weren't all that surprising for Bailey Huangzhuang. No wonder he could get pushed off a 3rd-story building and not have the least bit of panic, because he simply wasn't afraid. Deliberately suppressed his cultivation. Her deep eyes were the like a peaceful pool's, rippling over as she freely pondered. Up till now, Di Beichen seems to be much like an unfathomable mystery. Both legs crippled, suppressing his cultivation. I'm afraid that there must be many secrets. How strong is his original strength? Bailey Huangzhuang asked. Very strong. Little Black and Little White shouted out the exact same answer, strengthening Bailey Huangzhuang's suspicions. He was only 3 years older than her, but his strength was already so strong, so his cultivation talent must be incredibly high. Even this country's great talent was far from comparable to Di Beichen's level. It could only serve as proof that this Di Beichen was far from the helpless cripple he seemed to be. Only, what's my business what that guy does? Bailey Huangzhuang just shrugged as she walked into the medicine shop. 10,000 Medicine Lane, the king of all medicine shops. It had all the herbs one could want, and basically anyone could find what ingredients they wanted here. Just by walking in, Bailey Huangzhuang could smell the fragrant raw herbs and could immediately determine which herbs were which. Amassing spirit grass, life fruit, blood-clotting grass, a shallow smile laid on Bailey Huangzhuang's red lips as a wave of familiarity washed over her. Before, her favorite place to stay was always the medicine room, and lived there almost all year round. That's why here, she felt very comfortable. 10,000 Medicine Lane's shopkeeper, Ji Wenbin was sorting the herbs when he looked up and saw Bailey Huangzhuang closing her eyes, relying on scent alone to determine which herb was which. His face reflected awe as he listened. Girl is really great, your skill with herbs really isn't lacking. Ji Wenbin sighed with approval. He handled herbs year after year for the medicine shop, and only after many years of accumulated experience and exercises had he finally been able to distinguish herbs by scent. Seeing this girl hardly 15 years old able to do the same, how could he not be surprised? Bailey Huangzhuang smiled faintly, shopkeeper is flattering me. How could girl have such skill with herbs, despite being so young? Ji Wenbin sized up Bailey Huangzhuang curiously. He was always somewhat biased towards medicinal herbs, so upon meeting the Bailey Huangzhuang well-versed in herbs, he felt as if he had met an old friend. Looking at Ji Wenbin's excited appearance, Bailey Huangzhuang knew instantly that this shopkeeper was only somebody infatuated with pharmacy. A question asked by such a person was only pure curiosity, nothing more. I've been studying herbs meticulously since I was a child, so I know a lot about these kinds of stuff. Bailey Huangzhuang smiled lightly. So then, girl is a physician. Bailey Huangzhuang nodded, confirming Ji Wenbin's thought. In her past life, she and the elders thoroughly studied medicine for days. After mingling with herbs and medicine for years, Bailey Huangzhuang finally received the title of elder and became one of the best doctors in that era. Medicine was an area that she would always be confident in. The awe in Ji Wenbei's eyes grew even more. To be a physician at such a young age, it seems that her future achievements will not be small. What does girl want to buy? Seeing Bailey Huangzhuang size up the herbs on the counter, Ji Wenbei spoke out, my 10,000 Medicine Lane shop's herbs are always in stock, and contains almost all the herbs in the world. Bailey Huangzhuang smiled as she looked through the herbs. But when she saw their price tags, her eyes indicated a trace of doubt. Why is the price so unreasonable? Her eyebrows knitted together, but Bailey Huangzhuang didn't say those words out loud. She's in the 10,000 Medicine Lane's shop who was known for their fairness, so the prices shouldn't be wrong. But after only 1,000 years, how did the prices manage to change so much? Before, white dew grass and fairy seed were clearly the cheapest medicinal herbs. Currently though, the prices were at least 10 times higher, but on the contrary, other herbs were even cheaper than they should have been. How strange. Suddenly, Bailey Huangzhuang spotted a particular herb. Its whole body was green as it twinkled like stars in the sky, imitating the heavenly bodies in the sky. Yes, it was the spirit star grass. Shopkeeper, this spirit star grass is only a single silver coin. Bailey Huangzhuang restrained her excitement and quietly asked the shopkeeper. Ji Wenbei nodded, yes, spirit star grass has always been quite useless, although it's usually rare. I was about to take it down, if you want, I can give it to you. Hearing his words, Bailey Huangzhuang suddenly became very happy. Spirit star grass was a herbal ingredient that was needed for many legendary medicines. In the past, it was always fought for fiercely during auctions. 1,000 years later, and it's already turned into trash that nobody wanted? This generation really can't recognize the good from bad. How could you do that? I'll buy it. Bailey Huangzhuang laughed, I'll also take the white dew grass and fairy seed. Wait a moment, I'll get them for you. Ji Wenbei smiled as he spoke. Until she walked out of 10,000 Medicine Lanes, Bailey Huangzhuang really couldn't believe that she had just bought the spirit star grass for only 1 silver. Since I've crossed, this world's been like a fantasy. Bailey Huangzhuang thought secretly as the edges of her lip couldn't stop rising. Such good luck, From hers and Ji Wenbei's chat, Bailey Huangzhuang learned that since the destruction of the Dan dynasty hundreds of years ago, spirit star grass and other precious herbs' uses had been lost. So over time, the herbal market changed into what it is now. Thinking about this, Bailey Huangzhuang was very happy. Others may not know of the herb's uses, but she does. This way, she could easily get precious herbs, and nobody would bother to stop her. This was simply like pie falling from the sky. Pie is good, but you also need money. Bailey Huangzhuang frowned. She had wanted to refine a spirit-amassing pill first to speeden up her cultivation. She's already bought most of the ingredients she needed earlier, but she still lacked a bone spirit flower. The price of a bone spirit flower was high, and coupled together with the pill furnace that she still needed to buy, the money she had saved simply wasn't enough. Since she had always stayed in her room in the general's household, there was no way money could just fall into her hands. As her total savings only amounted to 5 gold coins, she could be described as poor. The poor can't afford it. Bailey Huangzhuang sighed. This matter was really urgent. Without money, she can't carry out her plans. When it comes to money, a handsome face emerged in Bailey Huangzhuang's memory. That guy was so stingy. If he had just given her 100 gold coins, then she wouldn't be in the situation she is now. After visiting a blacksmith's shop to get some silver needles crafted, Bailey Huangzhuang was completely poor and readied herself to go back to the general's household. But as she walked, Bailey Huangzhuang's face changed slightly. Why? Because she found out that somebody was trailing her. Slowly speeding up her pace, she walked towards an alley. She would like to see who dared to follow her. Turning through an intersection, Bailey Huangzhuang's figure suddenly disappeared completely. Hey, where did that person go? Just a moment ago, she was definitely still there. This girl is somebody His Highness, the Crown Prince, took a liking to. If we lose her, then our lives will surely turn miserable. On the roof, Bailey Huangzhuang looked down indifferently on the 2 anxious figures below her like ants, her eyes flashing with ridicule. Those 2 people weren't strangers to her, they were Xianyuan Huan's followers. In the past, they've both taunted her cruelly for days. Thump! Thump! Bailey Huangzhuang's figure suddenly flashed as she leaped. You could only hear 2 thumping noises before Zhang Ping and Song Ji were directly knocked unconscious by her. Bailey Huangzhuang clapped her hands and looked at the unconscious 2 in front of her. These 2 guys only had a little martial arts, with no cultivation or talent. But usually they could help scheme very well and give Xianyuan Huan many ideas, so he let them stay by his side. Luckily, somebody just happened to come and deliver money into my hands. Bailey Huangzhuang smiled slyly and directly took both their coin purses and peeked inside. Gold coins, it seemed that even these goons were richer than her. Quietly sneaking back into the general's household, Bailey Huangzhuang began to rummage in the various chests and cupboards, looking for something she could pawn, finally finding some jewelry. Fortunately though, it seemed that it looked like it'd be worth quite some money if she pawned it. She was, after all, the general's household's young miss. Even if the general mistreated her, she still had some of the most basic jewelry. Looking at the jewelry laid out on the table, Bailey Huangzhuang stroked her chin. Even if I sold everything, I still won't be able to afford all the things I need for my cultivation. Cultivation is something that burns money. If she didn't have enough cultivation resources, her future cultivation will be troublesome. She had to catch up to Bailey Yuyan as soon as possible. This absolutely cannot be delayed. Is there a way to make money? Bailey Huangzhuang sank into thought. At first she had wanted to refine some pills and sell it to earn money, but without even enough to afford a pill furnace, there was no way she could do that now. Suddenly, Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes shone with light. Starting out as godly doctor at 10,000 Medicine Lane wouldn't be too bad. She's always been very confident in her medicinal skills, so if she becomes a highly skilled doctor at 10,000 Medicine Lane, she'll surely be rolling in money. Qin Imperial Mansion. The breeze blew, causing the bamboo leaves to dance in the air rhythmically as the plants formed a curtain. A pale, golden figure sat behind a stone table. His delicate and pretty face was unparalleled that held a teasing rouge-like expression was quickly replaced by an astute and indifferent visage, a supremely noble air surrounding him. "Hey Mu, do you know that girl's identity?" His thin lips opened slightly as his black-like obsidian pupils glinted with faint happiness. It was rare to find such an interesting girl. "Young lord, that girl's identity is somewhat special." Hey Mu's face was slightly strange. In fact, he had also thought that this girl's identity was rather weird. Bewitching raised his eyebrow and laughed lightly. "What's special?" "That girl is the general's household's young miss of the first wife, Bailey Huangzhuang." Hey Mu reported truthfully. "Huangzhuang, Bailey Huangzhuang." Bewitching repeated her name twice, his lips gradually widening. No wonder Xianyuan Huan's expression was strange when he saw her earlier. What happened to the guy Xianyuan sent to follow Bailey Huangzhuang? Bailey Huangzhuang knocked the two unconscious before taking their wallets. After that, she wrote a few choice words on their backs. Remembering how Bailey Huangzhuang had handled the matter, Hey Mu couldn't help but reveal a little smile. "What words?" Bewitching was very curious. He had seen Bailey Huangzhuang's mischievous and clever nature with his own eyes, and right away knew that she was like a cunning she-demon. Prince Jing's buttocks were really white. "His Highness, the Crown Prince, are even whiter." Pfft. Bewitching had just drunk a glass of water when he heard what Bailey Huangzhuang had said, and almost spat out the water he just drunk. This woman really acts out of the ordinary. Ah. Hey Mu's eyes held a hint of laughter. Usually the little lord always kept a cool and collected expression on his face, and it was rare for him to make such a face. This Bailey Huangzhuang was really a treasure. "Little lord, the crown prince tried to act against you. Shall we dispose of him?" Hey Mu's face darkened. His little lord was an honored existence, but earlier, even a little crown prince dared to bully him. They were already unable to continue watching. "We can't act rashly." His eyes that were deep like the ocean shined with intelligence. "Although I've already stayed in Fengbo country for 3 years, the spies still haven't withdrawn, so we can only endure. We can't watch little lord get insulted." "Ah." Hey Mu frowned. "We can quietly deal with this prince without exposing ourselves. Right now, I'm the crippled prince in Fengbo country that everybody mocks. Even if Xianyuan Huan is dead, there would be another, and another, and another. This wouldn't have any meaning, and will only end up provoking suspicion." Bewitching's tone was cold as he looked at his legs. Still no news of the godly doctor. Hey Mu's face sunk and he shook his head. No news. If it wasn't for his little lord's legs to be suddenly crippled, then there wouldn't be any need for them to stifle their demands and suffer in silence. There will inevitably be a day when they pay back everything in full. Bewitching's expression stayed the same. Even though the people under him were unyielding, he was as tranquil as night, his maturity far exceeding his age. The next day, an interesting rumor spread through the palace walls. Who knows what leopard heart or bile they've eaten, but the crown prince's 2 subordinates Zhang Ping and Song Ji dared to appraise the buttocks of the Prince Jing and the crown prince on their backs. Prince Jing's buttocks are white. The crown prince's buttocks are even whiter. These 2 sentences seemed to become the dinner table joke. Some people even jeered about how Zhang Ping could compare Prince Jing's snow-white buttocks. After all, many onlookers that day saw Prince Jing's butt, but how could they know if the crown prince's was whiter? This developed into an in-depth investigation, and suddenly a single large word spontaneously emerged in everybody's mind: homosexuality. No wonder the crown prince would always keep Zhang Pei and Song Ji by his side. And since the news spread, Xianyuan Huan and Xianyuan Jing both haven't stepped foot out of the palace once. However, their actions only provoked further suspicion as the people turned to their own conjectures, laughing incessantly one after another. Xianyuan Huan and Xianyuan Jing's reputations were both usually bad, but it was still incredibly rare to see them so disgraced. Everybody continued to add vinegar and oil to the fire, further shaming the two men who could only hide in their mansions. Bailey Huangzhuang left the general's household in early morning. Ever since Bai Qing was beaten to death, the general's household had never sent any more maidservants to attend to her again. But on one hand, it was actually saved her a lot of trouble. Nobody would care about her life and death, so even if she left the general's household, nobody would know, or care. Taking the lead to the pawn shop, Bailey Huangzhuang sold all the jewelry, successfully gaining thousands of gold coins. However, she told the pawn shop to reserve it, and that it wouldn't be long until she came to buy it back. After all, most of it was her mother's jewelry, and couldn't be sold. To become a godly doctor, the resources of the workplace must be many. Maybe that was saying a little too much, but most importantly, she needs somewhere appropriate to open her business first. An appropriate location, Bailey Huangzhuang whispered to herself. Currently, she had no idea of how the imperial city worked, so she needed to find somebody experienced with the market. 10,000 Medicine Lane's shopkeeper, Ji Wenbei. A herbal medicine shop and a doctor were often connected with each other, and Bailey Huangzhuang believed that Ji Wenbei understood this very clearly. In her past life, she was the family head and had met many people. Although Ji Wenbei was a businessman, his heart was good and wasn't a profiteer. If she asked him, he should agree. Just as she thought, when Bailey Huangzhuang proposed the idea, Ji Wenbei agreed without hesitation. "Girl, are you opening up the hospital with only you alone?" Ji Wenbei sized up Bailey Huangzhuang, surprised. This girl was too young. Even if a godly doctor were to open up a hospital, with her age, she would have no credibility. Bailey Huangzhuang nodded slightly, her small face self-confident and radiant. "Yes, that's right. If it's about the business, then there's no need for you to worry. Only, I'm a bit of a stranger to the imperial city and don't know too much, hopes that shopkeeper can support and introduce me. One day in the future, I'll become a godly doctor. At that time, I hope that I can purchase all the herbs I need from here. Is that okay?" Listening to her words, Ji Wenbei nodded again and again. "No problem. By chance, I just so happen to know somebody who was selling a hospital. If Huangzhuang girl buys the hospital and works with us, it'll also save us some trouble." Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes shone brightly. "Naturally, that's great. If she went somewhere else to buy a random shop, she'd have to take all the trouble to redesign and equip it. By taking over a hospital directly, it saved her a lot of time. If you're interested, shall I lead you around to take a look?" Ji Wenbei asked with a smile. "In that case, thank you." Following Ji Wenbei's lead, Bailey Huangzhuang arrived at the hospital that was on sale. When the old doctor found out that Bailey Huangzhuang wanted to buy it, his attitude became very warm. Although the hospital wasn't very big, it had an elegant layout, giving off a sense of comfort. "My location here is very good. If girl wants to open up a hospital here, many of the older guests will continue to patronize you," the old doctor said. Bailey Huangzhuang nodded slightly, very satisfied with the hospital. Able to be kept open for more than a decade, it seemed to hold a position in the imperial city. Even as the old doctor walked, many people continued to enter and leave customarily. But she knew that with her ability, there shouldn't be a problem with these visitors. Ji Wenbei and the old doctor's relationship was great, and with his help, Bailey Huangzhuang managed to successfully buy the entire hospital for only 300 gold coins. Then, Bailey Huangzhuang arranged for a number of things to be rearranged and repaired. She headed back to the general's household. If the progress was fast enough, then the hospital should be able to reopen in no less than 7 days. Cultivation was currently the most important thing for Bailey Huangzhuang. As soon as she returned to the estate, she immediately began to cultivate. The royal family holds a grand hunting contest every other year, and it was quickly approaching in 3 months. In 3 months' time at the hunting banquet, she must get first and reveal her power. However, Bailey Huangzhuang had only started cultivating when Little Black hurriedly ran into the room. Master, Bailey Yuyan and Xian Yuanhuan came. Bailey Huangzhuang's pupils congealed. If the two came to visit her together, it would never be a good thing. Rapidly changing her appearance, Bailey Huangzhuang restored her previous yellow and malnourished face. Bang! A foot kicked the door maliciously. Under its overbearing power, the door creaked and burst off the hinges, broken. Who is it? Bailey Huangzhuang feigned ignorance as her face turned nervous. Xian Yuanhuan looked up and down at her ugly, emaciated appearance, and the doubt in his heart completely vanished. This fellow is clearly just a blind trash. How could she be the Huangzhuang he had met earlier? Your Highness, the Crown Prince, how are you? Bailey Yuyan was actually also very confused at Xian Yuanhuan. She had thought that he came to the general's household to look for her, but didn't even come to her room before directly dragging her to elegant Daylily Pavilion. Could it be that His Highness, the Crown Prince, had thought that she was simply worse than Bailey Huangzhuang? It's nothing. Xian Yuanhuan replied indifferently as his hand reached out to pick up a teacup, dumping its contents on Bailey Huangzhuang's head. He must be completely certain of this fact. Zhang Ping and Song Ji had been knocked out by Huangzhuang, but if Huangzhuang wasn't Bailey Huangzhuang, then why would she write such words ridiculing him on their backs? Due to this, he had become the laughingstock of the city. Even his royal father, the emperor, was dissatisfied at him. Watching Xian Yuanhuan's movements, a streak of cold light quickly flitted across Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes. This bastard actually dared to come up with this method to test her. Bang! Bailey Huangzhuang sensibly stayed still, and the cup heavily hit her forehead. Ah! Bailey Huangzhuang conveniently took the opportunity to fall onto her side. She understood that if she didn't do at least this much today, Xian Yuanhuan definitely wouldn't let her off easily. Her strength still isn't strong enough to even defend herself, so right now she could only continue acting like a blind trash. Seeing Bailey Huangzhuang hit by the tea cup, Xian Yuanhuan's eyes were full of satisfaction. Anything else could change, but instinct could not. Bailey Huangzhuang, that blind trash, he really wanted more. Your Royal Highness, Crown Prince. Bailey Yuyan was relieved. If Xian Yuanhuan could treat Bailey Huangzhuang like that, then he probably doesn't have any feelings for her. Okay, let's go. Xian Yuanhuan wore a proud smile. The only reason he came here was to confirm if Bailey Huangzhuang was truly blind or not. Now that he is certain, why should he continue to watch this trash? Listening, although rather confused, Bailey Yuyan obediently readied herself to leave, following Xian Yuanhuan. Climbing up from the floor, Bailey Huangzhuang glared at Xian Yuanhuan, this scum. Her deep black eyes were like a peaceful pool as it gleamed with cold light. Her fingers flicked, and the two black and white furballs flew out. I relied on you two last time as a cushion, but this time, I'll rely on you guys as a hidden weapon. Although Little White and Little Black were dissatisfied, they still obediently jumped onto Bailey Yuyan and Xian Yuanhuan's bodies. After a while, when the two had finally left elegant Daylily Pavilion, Little White and Little Black rolled back into the room. Finished? Bailey Huangzhuang looked at the two fluff balls, her lips hooked up in a shallow arc, of course. If we go into action, then what can't we do? Little Black stated arrogantly, obviously pleased with himself. He tried to copy Bailey Huangzhuang, attempting to raise his brow. Over his eyes looked they were about to jump out of their sockets instead, since he had no eyebrows to be speak of in the first place. Bailey Huangzhuang's face bloomed into an utterly enhancing smile. There's no time for a complete revenge, but there is for interest. Bailey Yuyan had just entered a graceful happy pavilion preparing to serve Xian Yuanhuan well when her face suddenly changed. Why is her body so itchy? When Xian Yuanhuan saw the blank, foolish expression on Bailey Yuyan's face as she stood motionlessly, he couldn't help but ask, Yuyan, what happened? Nothing, nothing. Bailey Yuyan forced on a smile, but her body couldn't help but sway side to side. The itch began to grow more and more intense, as if there were thousands of bugs climbing up and down on her body. What happened to you? Xian Yuan Huan frowned. He was already in a bad mood due to the scolding he got from his father, so as when he saw Bailey Yuyan's constantly twisting ass, his heart had an unexplainable burst of anger. Are you making fun of me, that I'm inadequate? Bailey Yuyan waved her hands in denial again and again. Your Royal Highness, Crown Prince, it's not that, ah. Then what is it? Bailey Yuyan was so anxious that her face turned red. I'm just itchy. Saying this, Bailey Yuyan could no longer stand the intense itch on her body and began to scratch uncontrollably. Bailey Yuyan felt a burst of comfort as she scratched, but the more she scratched, the worse the itching got. She simply couldn't stop. In the heat of the painful itch, Bailey Yuyan couldn't much about Xian Yuan Huan's presence as she dropped and rolled madly on the floor. So itchy, too itchy. Looking at such a Bailey Yuyan, Xian Yuan Huan frowned. Yuyan, you okay? Your Royal Highness, Crown Prince, my body is so itchy. Tears began to fall from Bailey Yuyan's eyes. Quickly, help me. Xian Yuan Huan was startled and said, You wait, I'll help you find a doctor. The originally tranquil general's household was now busy and bustling. Initially, nobody thought that it was anything big, but when they saw Bailey Yuyan's blood-stained body, they knew that it wasn't a trivial matter. Bailey Huangzhuang observed the panicked scene, her face enchanting as she laughed. This itching powder was no more than a small lesson. If it wasn't for Bailey Yuyan's vicious intentions, the original Bailey Huangzhuang wouldn't be blind. If it wasn't for Bailey Yuyan who urged the original Bailey Huangzhuang to commit suicide, then she wouldn't have died. The debt of a life will also be settled sooner or later. Master, the powder of yours is so powerful, ah. Little Black's eyes shone with surprise. At first when Master told him to sprinkle the itching powder on Bailey Yuyan, he couldn't help but be dissatisfied. That woman was so hateful, this little trick couldn't be nearly enough to count as interest. But now seeing Bailey Yuyan nearly scratch herself raw, tearing open flesh, Little Black knew that he had underestimated the itching powder. Bailey Huangzhuang smiled. The itching powder I made is naturally not comparable to normal itching powder. So if it continues, will Bailey Yuyan die? Little Black asked curiously. Letting such a person die would be a favor to the world, ah. She won't. This is only intermediate level itching powder, so it has a time limit of an hour. After an hour, the powder will become useless. If she can control herself and not scratch, then nothing will happen. But if they scratch more, the itching will also become more intense. Bailey Huangzhuang shrugged, and obviously, Bailey Yuyan can't control herself well. Little White's mouth twitched. Master was really awesome, ah. This design was too amazing, ah. Few people are able to control themselves in the face of such a fierce itch. Why doesn't Xian Yuan Huan appear to have a problem? Little Black asked, puzzled. He looked disdainfully at Little White. Don't tell me you failed. Little White shook dismissively. Such a little thing, how could I fail? I didn't use itching powder for Xian Yuan Huan. Her deep, well-like phoenix eyes held a touch of cold light. If someone were to try and decipher the thoughts in her limitless black eyes, they would only find the intention to wreak havoc. From beginning to end, Xian Yuan Huan has never seen her once as a human. For such scum, itching powder was too simple. The only reason why she isn't retaliating against Xian Yuan Huan now, is so she can give him an even bigger slap in the future. What did you use? Little White asked curiously. Since Master returned from 10,000 medicine lanes, the house was always filled with a lot of strange things. Since he never understood, he also never asked. But now that he knew what the various bottles and jars could do, his interest heightened. Xian Yuan Huan smashed a teacup on my head, so I'll give him a taste of my pain. Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes were cold. A few days, and you'll see. Looking at the broken door that laid on the floor, a haze grew overcast on Bailey Huangzhuang's face. Since there was no way to repair the door, then might as well let it stay that way. After cleansing the wound on her forehead, Bailey Huanghang entered a state of cultivation as the two fluff balls went back into the primordial chaos ring. 7 days later. It was a bright and sunny day with clear skies. The streets of the imperial city was as lively as ever, but many unusual cries could be heard at the end of the avenue. Something was different today, and that was because Godly Doctor Square was open and ready for business. Red firecrackers exploded, attracting everybody's attention. Bailey Huangzhuang arranged for lion and dragon dances as a steady stream of people flowed into Godly Doctor Square. In just a little while, Godly Doctor Square was packed of people who were curious about the new hospital. Godly Doctor Square. A man was surprised when he looked up and saw the name of the new hospital. The name was really arrogant, ah. This hospital was originally Dr. Shen's hospital, but later when he retired and sold the hospital, some new owners came and took over, opening Godly Doctor Square. I don't know who took over, but just hearing the name, I can tell it's not simple, ah. Talks about the name gradually spread out, becoming a popular topic for the crowd. If it actually was a godly doctor, then of course it'd be great. But if it wasn't, then it would only be a joke. Inside the hospital, Ji Wenbei looked helplessly at Bailey Huangzhuang. Huangzhuang girl, this name you picked was really too. Although before he had never asked Bailey Huangzhuang for the hospital's name, looking at it now, Ji Wenbei couldn't help but feel ashamed. Others might not know, but he knew that Bailey Huangzhuang was the hospital's only doctor. Although he recognized Bailey Huangzhuang's skill in medicine, he also knew that she was far from being a godly doctor. So it was true, newborn calves really weren't afraid of the tiger. Opening up a hospital so arrogantly, if things don't go well, then it may as well become the bane of the imperial city. What is it? Bailey Huangzhuang laughed, too arrogant. Ji Wenbei sighed, Huangzhuang girl, you are also very clear that making a big show of little talents isn't a good thing. Previously, he had always thought that despite her age, Bailey Huangzhuang was very mature and insightful. But now, it seems that she still held the impulsiveness of youth, and couldn't always understand how the world works. Watching Ji Wenbei's disheartened appearance, a touch of appreciation appeared in Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes. Up until now, she could feel that Ji Wenbei was a sincerely good person. Brother Ji, please be at ease. I got everything under control. She was not well known. Only by using the title of godly doctor could she have achieved this effect. If you do not have the certain strength and take up the title, you'd be a joke. Only if you had the skills to take up such a name, would the title be worthy of its reputation. Seeing the resolute look on Bailey Huangzhuang's face, Ji Wenbei no longer said anything. This hospital was Bailey Huangzhuang's, and whatever she wanted to do was her own freedom. The performances ended and the people began to size up the interior of the hospital. The inside was completely white, decorated with green bonsai, giving off a fresh feeling. Today is the opening of Godly Doctor Square. The first 3 guests are completely free, and the everybody else here is half price. Bailey Huangzhuang's face was indifferent as she calmly and systematically stated today's activities of Godly Doctor Square. Are you the doctor of Godly Doctor Square? Everybody looked at his barely 15-year-old girl, their faces full of astonishment. Bailey Huangzhuang nodded lightly, the next in line of a medicinal family, and has studied medicine from birth. My skills are quite accomplished, so be at ease. But even if Bailey Huangzhuang said that, the people still weren't convinced. After all, Bailey Huangzhuang's age was simply too young. If Bailey Huangzhuang's diagnosis was wrong, then wouldn't they be the ones to suffer? All of a sudden, the situation in Godly Doctor Square changed. Although nobody left, no one entered either. They were all waiting for somebody to become a sacrificial sheep, but still, nobody appeared. But Bailey Huangzhuang was not the least bit surprised as she watched the scene in front of her. In fact, she had already thought that something like this would happen when she first chose to open up Godly Doctor Square. Ji Wenbei had already finished their first business transaction before Godly Doctor Square opened and had long since left for 10,000 Medicine Lane. The first 3 patients get their medical examinations free, so why isn't anyone coming forward? Amongst the crowd, a man who had just arrived at Godly Doctor Square saw how nobody moved, and couldn't help but ask curiously. This so-called doctor is only a 15-year-old girl with no elders supervising her, so who'd let her diagnosis and treat them? What if her diagnosis and treatments were incorrect? AI, this looks like it's no more than a rich little Missy's farce, it's better to go, ah. Everybody shook their heads as the crowd in front of Godly Doctor Square gradually dispersed. After all, nobody would want to accompany a little Missy's farce. Looking at this scene, Bailey Huangzhuang was still indifferent. Her original target customers for her hospital were big shots like ministers, officials, and royalty. Only they could give her a good profit. She didn't have so much free time that she would practice medicine freely for the public. This hospital was no more than to pave a way for her own cultivation, so whether the common people entered or not, it was of no concern to her. However, a figure in the crowd stared deeply at Bailey Huangzhuang, and only when he was completely certain of her identity, did he leave. Qin Imperial Mansion. You said Bailey Huangzhuang opened a hospital called Godly Doctor Square. Dibei Chen's handsome face was filled with interest as he twiddled with a ring on his thumb, staring at He Mu. He Mu nodded earnestly, right, but the girl's age was too young so nobody believed her or went into her hospital. Dibei Chen's air was relaxed, not the least bit surprised as he continued to ask, and how did she respond? Awfully calm. He Mu pondered and examined Dibei Chen. Her reaction was rather similar to how Little Lord would have reacted. Dibei Chen's deep, ocean-like eyes glowed with brilliant blue and purple light as he muttered, the current Bailey Huangzhuang is many times different compared to the past. What happened in the past few years to make her change like this? According to the information I found, this change occurred after Bailey Huangzhuang attempted to commit suicide, as if she had been swapped with a different person. He Mu's voice was doubtful as he reported back to Dibei Chen. If she wasn't swapped with a different person, then it can only mean that she was hiding all along. Dibei Chen's eyes narrowed. Has she hid her true self all along just to cancel her marriage with Xian Yuanhuan? Something like replacing someone with a different person was something that could only happen in theory, the possibility was too low. Therefore, the only possible way was hiding herself. Bailey Huangzhuang's sudden change after the marriage was annulled. Other than this reason, there were none. He Mu was shocked. He knew that Xian Yuanhuan had always been unhappy with the marriage, but why would Bailey Huangzhuang have such an intense hatred with it as well? He Mu, come and visit Godly Doctor Square with me later. Dibei Chen chuckled, I should also visit my wife occasionally. He Mu was stunned when he heard Dibei Chen's words. His eyes widened as he stared at him disbelievingly, almost wanting to slap himself to make sure he wasn't dreaming. Was this really his little lord speaking? Master, not a single patient came, ah. Little Black sat on the table, his big, round eyes filled with distress. She used to look forward to watching Godly Doctor Square's business bloom to follow Master to eat, but now she's afraid that Master herself might starve to death first. What's the hurry? Master obviously has a solution. Little White countered. Bailey Huangzhuang touched his head, Little White is smart. Master, what's the solution? Little Black curiously peered at her face, full of anticipation. Bailey Huangzhuang smiled mysteriously, this time, will depend on Xian Yuanhuan's help. Little Black was startled, her round eyes glimmering with surprise, that stupid prince? How can he help us? Right. Bailey Huangzhuang smiled cryptically, the news should have spread to the imperial castle by now. The two fluff balls looked at her smile, puzzled. They really couldn't figure out what Master had meant. Wife, why did you leave without a word? It was really difficult to find you, ah. A rich voice, Warm with alcohol held traces of both blame and delight interrupted Bailey Huangzhuang's thoughts. Hearing this shameless and familiar voice, Bailey Huangzhuang's face changed as she turned around only to see, sure enough, Bewitching behind her. Who is your wife? Bailey Huangzhuang raised an eyebrow, her bright, clear phoenix eyes glittering with a dangerous light. Last time, this guy was so shameless as to renege on a debt. This time, he even took advantage of her orally. Bewitching looked at her innocently and blinked with his bright eyes. Wife, I've already become one of your people, don't tell you don't want to take responsibility. When did you become one of my people? Bailey Huangzhuang was helpless. She really didn't expect that this dignified-looking Prince Chen would actually turn out to be so shameless, completely ruining his good looks. Ah. On that bright, sunny day, just get to the point. You saved me in front of so many people, so I naturally wanted to devote my body to you. Bewitching's face was earnest. I am not a man who goes back on his word. When He Mu saw his always calm and indifferent little lord suddenly turning into a downright rogue, he couldn't help but sputter in shock. It seems like little lord really treats this Bailey Huangzhuang differently. Ah. If you really want to thank me, then never appear in front of me again. Then, I'd be very thankful to you. She truly was helpless against this guy with such a flawless face. Even playing as a rogue, he still flooded with irresistible charm. But even so, Bailey Huangzhuang knew that he wasn't the simple cripple he seemed to be on the surface. It had better to avoid such a tricky person. However, Bewitching just acted like Bailey Huangzhuang never said anything as he continued to talk. Wife, I didn't think that you'd be skilled in medicine. Ah. As Bewitching examined the hospital, Bailey Huangzhuang gave him a disdainful look. She really had no idea why Bewitching came to bother her. But your business doesn't seem to be doing well, want me to help? Bailey Huangzhuang inspected Bewitching. With this fellow's rouge-like qualities, his intentions most likely aren't good. What can you do for me? Bailey Huangzhuang asked. If you could gift me the 100 gold coins you previously owned me, it'd be a great help. Talks about money really hurts my feelings. With our relationship, we can just skip over matters about money. A charming smile sat on Bewitching's lips like a fresh breeze, giving off a soothing feeling. Though of course, that was only relevant to other people. For Bailey Huangzhuang, she could only think about how his roguelike qualities were truly engraved deep into his bones. Between us, although I can't do much about the money, I can help you gather customers. Ah. Bewitching grinned. The light in Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes sharpened and couldn't help but grow curious about Bewitching's proposal. How can you get me customers? Although she had already thought of a good way to attract customers, Bailey Huangzhuang wouldn't mind having Bewitching's plan as backup. Bewitching's smile grew wider. Isn't it simple? You have a customer right in front of you. Bailey Huangzhuang's stare swept across the room before finally landing on Bewitching. You? Bewitching nodded earnestly as he spoke with an elegant smile. Of course, am I not an easily available patient? If you can cure my leg's illness, then I'll give you any reward you want. He Mu's face stiffened. The little lord didn't really intend on letting Bailey Huangzhuang diagnose and treat him, right? You must know that little lord wasn't an ordinary person, and even the most skilled doctor in the country couldn't treat him, so how could Bailey Huangzhuang diagnose and cure him? Looking at Bewitching's calm and indifferent face, Bailey Huangzhuang immediately understood that he didn't believe in her medicine. In other words, Bewitching didn't believe her skills in medicine. Well anyways, there's no other guests so I'll help you look at your leg's disease. Her face portrayed self-confidence, clever and beautiful. For a moment, she looked like just a moving camellia flower, fresh and bright. As soon as her voice stopped, Bailey Huangzhuang did not waste time, immediately pulling on Bewitching's hand for his pulse. But just as she touched Bewitching's hand, she discovered that it was ice-cold, completely different from her imagination. A flash of light gleamed in the depths of Bewitching's eyes as the way he looked at Bailey Huangzhuang twisted. As she held Bei Chen's hand, the teasing expression on her face had long vanished. She had a feeling that the reason why he was crippled wasn't due to a physical deformity, but something else. Prince, this, He Mu's face was strained as he looked at Bei Chen. His little lord's identity wasn't simple, and you must know that his body wasn't the likes a common person could touch freely. If Bailey Huangzhuang was a spy sent from the other side, then wouldn't his little lord be in a lot of trouble? Bei Chen just waved a little, a charming smile still on his handsome face. It's fine, I would also like to see wife's medical skills. Bailey Huangzhuang keenly discovered the trace of killing intent that flashed by He Mu's eyes. In her past life, she had experienced many life-and-death battles and was especially sensitive to killing intent. Even though Hui Mu immediately covered it up, she could still sense it. This Bei Chen really isn't simple. As for this bastard's child identity, it may not be true. This man held many more secrets of his own. Her white and delicate hands held Bei Chen's. From the rough, large hands, Bailey Huangzhuang could tell that these were hands forged by years of practice with a sword. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many calluses. At the very least, it was impossible for Bei Chen to be weak with so much hard work, never mind the fact that Bei Chen already wasn't ordinary. As Bailey Huangzhuang inspected Bei Chen also inspected Bailey Huangzhuang. As far as he knows, this young miss of the general's household was not loved for long. When it was discovered at the age of 5 that she was unable to cultivate, she had been abandoned. If that's so, then where did she learn her medicinal skills? Could it be that Bailey Huangzhuang practiced in secret, but had to hide it from the general's household's control? He had already stayed in Fengbo country for 3 years now, yet Bailey Huangzhuang had never entered his sights. But now, Bei Chen knew Bailey Huangzhuang wasn't simple. At the very least, she should have a highly skilled master on her side to guide her. As Bailey Huangzhuang found a diagnosis from Bei Chen's pulse, a trace of alarm finally appeared in her eyes. A curse. If her diagnosis was correct, then Bei Chen's body was cursed. She had never thought that she'd encounter such a rare situation. In her past life, she had the chance to meet another cursed cultivator. However, that man was from an earth-shaking aristocratic family, far from the dethroned, abandoned Bei Chen. A cursed body was a rather special constitution. In such a huge world full of extraordinary things, some cultivators had unique physiques that stood out from the masses. Some physiques can greatly speed up a cultivator's cultivating speed, and this kind of cultivator often had great achievements. They almost always held a grand reputation since young. In addition to that, there are also some physiques that are the direct opposite of that, like the waste material physique. Not only was it useless to cultivation, but it would even slow cultivation speed dramatically, until the cultivator can no longer cultivate. Previously, it had been determined that she possessed a waste material physique, and was unable to cultivate. Now, she knew that it due to her dantian being destroyed, but why it was destroyed, she still had no clue. A cursed body was classified as a rather odd physique, because it had both amazing benefits and terrible faults. A cultivator with the cursed physique usually shines near the start of cultivation, and are unrivaled by others. But when their cultivation exceeds a certain level, the effects of the word curse will finally manifest. The cultivator would gradually grow paralyzed starting from the soles of his feet, lose their instinct, and if they aren't cured, then they would end up as complete trash. But on the contrary, if they managed to survive this disaster, then the cultivator would be like a phoenix rising from the flames. Their cursed physique would turn into a physique known as the mandate of heaven, to become the son of heaven. This constitution was very rare, but in her past life, she just so happened to have known a strong person that also had the cursed physique, so she had more understanding than others about this. But even so, she never expected that she would see another one here. From Bei Chen's current condition, Bailey Huangzhuang could tell that he was using every method to his disposal in order to stop paralyzation from spreading. However, the effects weren't very good and the two forces were evenly matched. Since the beginning, Bei Chen had closely observed Bailey Huangzhuang and didn't miss her stunned expression. Her face was clearly displayed surprise. She was surprised. An incredible thought suddenly appeared in Bei Chen's mind. This mysterious illness that even godly Dr. Feng Lian couldn't diagnose, could Bailey Huangzhuang possibly know? Huangzhuang lady, can you treat the illness in Prince's leg? He Mu asked probingly, his brows taut with anxiety. Bailey Huangzhuang did not immediately answer, but instead started to pinch Bei Chen's leg as she questioned, which parts of your legs are numb? Such words, He Mu couldn't help but be surprised. He had always thought that Bailey Huangzhuang was just barely passable, but to have the skill to help unclog little lord's arteries and veins as well as tell that little lord's legs had no feeling, Bailey Huangzhuang really wasn't simple. Bei Chen was also quite surprised. Earlier he had just wanted to tease Bailey Huangzhuang, but had never expected that she would actually give him results. It's numb from after the knee. Bei Chen's voice was low, a resolute light flickering past his jet-black pupils. Hearing this, Bailey Huangzhuang nodded as she pinched his calf. His leg was as hard as steel, and felt nothing like flesh and blood. One of the features of accursed physique was that the paralyzed body parts were similar to frozen ice. This was also why Bei Chen's hand was so cold earlier. I understand. Bailey Huangzhuang slowly spoke. What does that mean? He Mu couldn't help but ask urgently, do you know what's wrong with Prince's leg? No, Bailey Huangzhuang spoke as if it was only natural for her to know. What's going on then? He Mu's eyes were anxious, since this Bailey Huangzhuang knows what's wrong, then why doesn't she tell us? Godly Dr. Feng Lian couldn't find the root of the paralysis, so he could only prescribe some medicine to alleviate some of the paralysis. But these were only palliative, and couldn't completely eradicate the illness. It was incredibly rare to find someone who understood little lord's illness, so when she kept quiet, you could only imagine the incredible anxiety in He Mu's heart. Bailey Huangzhuang shrugged, an innocent look on her clever face. I know what's going on, but why should I tell you? He Mu was stupefied when he heard Bailey Huangzhuang's reply, whereas on the other hand, Bei Chen smiled widely as he listened. Aren't you helping to diagnose Prince? Then of course you should tell us what's wrong. He Mu protested. I opened a hospital, not a charity. Bailey Huangzhuang pointed at the sign reading, Godly Doctor Square and said, you guys and your prince are so poor that you couldn't even squeeze out 100 gold coins, so why should I tell you? In that case, why did you choose to help diagnose Prince's illness in the first place? I wanted to. Looking at her bright, playful face, He Mu had never felt so frustrated. He had previously thought that Bailey Huangzhuang's deflated appearance in front of his little lord was incredibly amusing to watch, but had never thought that she would reverse the situation so quickly. Do you really know the reason why my legs are paralyzed? Bei Chen's face held no traces of joking around, his tone completely serious. Bailey Huangzhuang raised her eyebrow, her clever face brimming with self-confidence, naturally. Did you really think that this godly doctor title was just me barking around? Bei Chen looked deeply at Bailey Huangzhuang before his eyes narrowed, and a sly smile appeared on his face. Suddenly, Bei Chen held her hand firmly. Wife, I am your man, but still so incompetent. Bei Chen's bewitchingly handsome face approached Bailey Huangzhuang, his expression innocent as it glimmered with hope. I believe as you watch your husband suffering such hardships, wife's heart must surely be upset. After all the injuries I've suffered, your heart is in pain, even though your mouth says otherwise. Bailey Huangzhuang rubbed her temples as she looked at this self-directed guy in his own play, his face bashful and shy. She could feel her tolerance reach her limit. Can't this guy at least save a little bit of his own face? It's clearly the second time we've met, okay? Bailey Huangzhuang tried to forcefully restrain her anger as her voice lowered, just leave Godly Doctor Square already. Leave. Now. She really didn't want to see this guy, who just simply loves to challenge her patience. With her words said, Bailey Huangzhuang turned and entered the inside of Godly Doctor Square. She was just too lazy to deal with this guy who only came to cause trouble. However, just when Bailey Huangzhuang swung away his hand, she found that Bei Chen's right hand suddenly used strength. Immediately, she felt her entire body get pulled backwards. All of this happened too abruptly. Even though Bailey Huangzhuang reacted extremely quick, it still couldn't compare to Bei Chen's premeditated action. He Mu widened his eyes as he watched this drama-like development, his jaw dropping as he even forgot to close it. He only saw Bailey Huangzhuang currently sitting on Bei Chen's body, as he used one hand to embrace Bailey Huangzhuang's slender waist, the other hand still holding Bailey Huanghang's hand. Bailey Huangzhuang was also currently stunned, dumbfoundedly staring at the handsome features in front of her. She forgot to breathe. His elegant and charming smile gradually widened as he watched the expressions rapidly change on Bailey Huangzhuang's face, a red blush spreading across her cheeks. Something changed in his heart. Wife's smart look just now was so cute. Bei Chen spoke softly, his voice one of pampering and indulgence. Bailey Huangzhuang was stunned and had only just reacted, her face red as she tried to leave. But Bei Chen seemed to have already anticipated her action, both hands tightly embracing her body like steel. Is my wife shy? Bei Chen leaned into Bailey Huangzhuang's face, his bewitching voice echoing by her ears. Bailey Huangzhuang could only smell a refreshing scent that penetrated into her heart as a sweet smile bloomed on that graceful face. She could only admit that there were many women in this world that would sink into his voice and handsome features. This man, he's too dangerous. If you still don't let go of me, you'll face the consequences. Her cold voice held a cautionary tone. Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint of light flashing by her eyes. Although she was currently no match for Bei Chen, she possessed techniques that cannot be blocked. Bei Chen's deep, ocean-like eyes stared into Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes, which were calm like a well. For a split second, sparks collided in her eyes, intense and bright. Slowly letting go of her hand, Bei Chen smiled as before, I'm only joking. Is there a need for my wife to be so serious? Bailey Huangzhuang once again straightened her posture, but her beautiful face was tinted with frost. Magnificent Prince Chen, if you want to find a wife, there's nothing easier. Just swing out your arm and there'd be a bunch of girls willing to marry you, so is there such a need to joke to me about this? Because I'm not interested in anyone else, I only like you. Bei Chen replied with unparalleled naturalness. Bailey Huangzhuang was stunned, but her eyes were dark. This bastard really would lie without making a draft. But I don't like you. Hearing this, Bei Chen's face showed a hurt expression. Is it that my wife already has someone in their heart? I do not. Bailey Huangzhuang subconsciously said. Since you don't, then I'm reassured. Bei Chen had a smile like the sun. There's no harm in thinking about it. I'm pretty good at being a husband. Piss off. Bailey Huangzhuang felt that if she continued to stay with Bei Chen for another second, she'd be unable to resist her urge to get violent. She immediately walked inside God Doctor Square. He Mu gazed at Bailey Huangzhuang's leaving silhouette, then also looked towards the smiling face of Bei Chen, then said, Young master, let's go. Bei Chen had a faint smile, he had already finished what he came here to do. Yes. He Mu and Bei Chen walked back to the Chen Imperial Palace. The whole way there, He Mu couldn't help but watch Bei Chen and inspect him up and down, right to left. Say what you want to say, it's not like you to get words stuck in your throat. Seeing that Bei Chen noticed his movements, He Mu couldn't help but massage his temples, and asked probingly, Young master, do you really like that Bailey girl? In the coming days, the young master would rarely socialize with women. There was no shortage of women who would admire the young master, but he never saw young master show any interest in any women. Huangzhuang had a fast reaction, but the young master who had prepared for this ages ago had an even faster reaction. Ever since Bailey Huangzhuang showed up, little lord's behavior had become very different. But even so, it's still only their second time meeting, so isn't the change a bit too big? Don't you think that this woman is very interesting? Dibei Chen's eyes held a faint smile. He Mu was unconvinced. What did the little lord mean? So does he like or not like her? Ah. But it was obvious that Dibei Chen wasn't going to give He Mu an explanation, and together they just silently walked back to the Chen imperial mansion. Only when she was absolutely sure Dibei Chen had left, did Bailey Huangzhuang return inside Godly Doctor Square. The two black and white fluff balls jumped in front of Bailey Huanghang but didn't say a thing, only looking at her with big, rounded eyes. Did you guys see anything? Bailey Huangzhuang couldn't help but ask. Little Black had an ambiguous smile on her face as she said, Master, you blushed. Actually, if you ignore his legs, then this Prince Chen is really quite good. Little White's tone was playful as he teased, Master's a godly doctor, so treating him would be no problem. Watching the two fluff balls taunt her, Bailey Huangzhuang just grabbed them before directly throwing them to the other side of the room. Recalling what happened earlier, Bailey Huangzhuang just couldn't help but feel depressed. Damn that Dibei Chen. Although she was quite experienced in life, she was at a complete blank with love. Now with this distasteful Dibei Chen deliberately playing with her, it was really too hateful. I heard the crown prince had fallen ill, but all the imperial physicians couldn't do anything. Who knows what strange disease, but countless blisters grew one after another on His Highness, the Crown Prince's body, and now the Imperial Palace is calling out the most skillful doctors under heaven. It's said that anyone who could cure the Crown Prince's illness will be awarded 100,000 gold coins. Hearing the reward, everybody sucked in a breath of cold air. If a doctor can cure the Crown Prince and get the 100,000 gold coins, it was enough for them to never have to work again. How could it be so simple? Even if all the imperial physicians and doctors were to work together and try to solve it, I'm still afraid that nobody would be able to cure the Crown Prince. The corners of Bailey Huangzhuang's red lips curved up into a smile. Her judgment was correct, and nobody in the group of doctors and imperial physicians could help the Crown Prince. Little White and Little Black immediately rolled back, no longer daring to tease Bailey Huangzhuang. Otherwise, who knew how far she might throw them this time? Master, is Xianyuan Huan sick because of the powder you told me to sprinkle on him last time? Little White asked. Earlier, it was Little Black who had sprinkled itching powder on Bailey Yuyan, letting her suffer her punishment while Xianyuan Huan got off scot-free. But now it seems that it wasn't as simple as it seemed to be. So smart. Bailey Honghang smiled and nodded, a ruthless shine reappearing in her clear eyes. Xianyuan Huan, such scum ought to taste what pain really feels like. But Master, then why would you only make Xianyuan Huan fall sick now? Asked Little Black. Bailey Huangzhuang's red lips curved into a smile, because I want Xianyuan Huan to bring me some profit. She had calculated that it would take 7 days for her Godly Doctor Square to open, so she decided to give Xianyuan Huan the taste of her miasma poisoning powder. Miasma poisoning powder was a poison, causing the victim to be covered in agonizingly painful blisters. If the blister were to pop, then the pain would be gone, but a slow, tormenting poison would be released in its place. The symptoms would reveal itself in 7 days without any prior notice. This was her own customized drug specially for Xianyuan Huan. Bailey Huangzhuang knew nobody could cure her poison, but she herself. The emperor doted on Xianyuan Huan very much. Once he realized that the imperial physicians couldn't do anything, he will definitely inform the outside world to call skilled doctors and physicians into the palace to treat his son. By that time, Bailey Huangzhuang would sweep in and cure Xianyuan Huan, giving her publicity free of charge. Then, everybody would know of her Godly Doctor Square, and business would naturally flow steadily from then on. We're going to the palace now. Little Black and Little White were both puzzled before speaking up angrily. In my opinion, it's not much better than just directly killing Xianyuan Huan. Xianyuan Huan forced Master to suffer so much, this little pain is really not worth it. Compared to what he had done with the dead Bailey Huangzhuang, this death is far too easy. A sharp light flashed through Bailey Huangzhuang's eyes as the enchanting smile on her lips revealed a trace of ruthlessness. This pain the previous Bailey Huangzhuang had suffered for years, she will pay it back 1,000-fold. Master's plan is to let Xianyuan Huan suffer for 2 days before going to the emperor's palace. Little White immediately guessed Bailey Huangzhuang's intentions. She would first let Xianyuan Huan taste all the pain the drug could possibly offer, before curing him of the poison. As he envisioned the moment when Xianyuan Huan thanks Bailey Huangzhuang gratefully, Little White laughed. That's right. We also need to let everybody know just how severe this illness is before I cure it. Otherwise, how would I be able to show off my medicinal skill? The next 2 days were just as Bailey Huangzhuang had expected. Many doctors and physicians entered the palace with their heads held high, but left the palace sighing with heads tucked low. This strange illness was completely unheard of. Whether it was the miasma poisoning powder or itching powder, they were all Bailey Huangzhuang's exclusive, handmade recipes. Throughout the millennium, the recipes had gradually gotten lost in the flow of time. It was completely normal that nobody in Xingxua continent had any idea what it was. Furthermore, even 1,000 years ago, there were only a small number that knew of these recipes. Because Bailey Huangzhuang was always interested in drugs, poison, and powders back then, she had always spent her free time researching these various things. As such, many of these recipes were made by her own hands. When she had shown her results back then, all the elders noisily clamored as if they had seen a dog fly or a chicken bounce. Bailey Yuyan had to be forcibly restrained due to the itching powder, her skin and flesh teared open. Nowadays, she hid in her estate, never visiting Xianyuan Huan once even while he was ill. This matter aroused everybody's suspicions. After all, who didn't know Bailey Yuyan and Xianyuan Huan were a couple? Now as they saw such a situation, they couldn't help wondering in their hearts, did something happen between the two? Although Bailey Huangzhuang didn't know how bad Bailey Yuyan's wounds were, she could easily guess that they weren't small. This itching powder was her own recipe, so how could she not know just how serious it could be? Bailey Yuyan had poisoned her blind, so she'll destroy her looks. It's an eye for an eye. Another day passes, more doctors enter the palace and walk out shaking their heads. In my opinion, it seems like His Royal Highness is most likely hopeless. Shoo, be quiet. If you dare to spread such a rumor, then be careful to keep your little life. Bah, the crown prince had always been arrogant and despotic, who knows what unspeakable thing he did to receive such retribution. It's karma. I've heard that the crown prince fell into a coma, and if he's not cured today, then he might not live through the night. Ah. In the imperial city, almost everybody was talking about Xianyuan Huan's condition. Being a prince of a country, although he wasn't very well liked, everybody was still very concerned. I guess it's time for me to go now. Bailey Huangzhuang's small, clear face rippled with self-confidence as she picked up her medicinal box and began walking to the imperial palace. 3 days later. The pain Xianyuan Huan suffered was already far beyond what a human could possibly stand. If she didn't heal him now, he might have already even ascended to 9th heaven the next morning. Just as she got to the gates, Bailey Huangzhuang was spotted by the guards. Who is it? I am a doctor, here to treat His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince. Bailey Huangzhuang replied calmly. The guards turned suspicious as they listened to Bailey Huangzhuang's answer. Eyeing her carefully, one replied, "Don't screw with us. This isn't a place for you to cause trouble, hurry up and scram. I am a doctor. If you don't let me in the palace to treat His Royal Highness, take extra care of your necks." Bailey Huangzhuang's demeanor had turned cold and her eyes flashed with a ruthless light. An arrogant air was suddenly present before her. The guard's original disdain cracked a little, stunned by Bailey Huangzhuang's suddenly imposing attitude. As the palace guards, they had met many big shots and officials, however, they had never seen anyone with such a frightening demeanor. Not even His Royal Highness possessed such a lofty attitude. Under such an imposing aura, their primal instincts yearned to pledge their allegiance and serve her from the bottoms of their heart. But even so, they still didn't dare to defy their orders. The guards slowly recovered one after another as they stared, flabbergasted by this young girl, Bailey Huangzhuang. Who is she? How could her aura be so frightening? Bailey Huangzhuang's face was still indifferent, a trace of haughtiness in between her brows. These guards were just dogs who lowered their heads to the strong. As long as you had the ability, they would be respectful to you. In her past life, she was the head of an extremely distinguished aristocratic family. Her lofty and imposing aura had been trained since young, and she may have passed through space, the imposing manner engraved in her still remained. Sure enough, as soon as she released her aura, the guards no longer dared to look down on Bailey Huangzhuang. How could a normal person possibly have such an imposing, yet dignified aura? The imperial palace was a spectacular sight, gold and jade in glorious splendor. It released a blatant solemn and dignified air, making one deeply aware how small they were. Under the guards' leadership, Bailey Huangzhuang finally arrived at the East Palace. The usually quiet East Palace was abnormally busy. Doctors, physicians, ministers, a group of 3,322 people continuously worked to improve Xianyuan Huan's condition. Upon seeing another doctor arrived, everybody just took a quick glance. For the past 3 days, a new doctor or physician would come almost every moment, and they were already long used to it. But when everybody saw Bailey Huangzhuang, their faces all changed. It wasn't because of her looks, but because her age was just too small. A 15-year-old girl that might not even be able to distinguish between the different herbs, but actually wants to treat the crown prince. Is this a joke? Why'd you bring this little girl here? Aren't you just causing trouble? One of the many imperial physicians in the East Palace roared angrily. Although they were all working together to treat the crown prince, you can't just turn to any doctor one could find when critically ill and bring in this child. The bodyguard seemed to have already expected the physician's anger and had left as soon as brought Bailey Huangzhuang to this room. Although the other doctors didn't say anything, their attitudes and thoughts were all the same. This little girl coming here is of no help whatsoever, and is only a burden. Elders, I still haven't even seen the prince's condition, so are you already able to say that I can't cure your prince? Bailey Huangzhuang's voice was unhurried, her clear, jade-like face indifferent and carefree. There were no traces of doubt or displeasure, just an apathetic calmness. Looking at Bailey Huangzhuang's calm and composed appearance, the head physician Ning Hong's expression had already changed somewhat. Regardless of the little girl's medical skill, just her mental strength alone wasn't something normal people could compare to. You are young. Even if you've studied medicine since you were a child, it would still be impossible for you to master the art. Go back. Ning Hong said. He could already see the crown prince not making the night. When he dies, the emperor would surely grow angry, and everybody here would be implicated. A little girl doesn't have to come here only to experience such a calamity. Even this little girl who still smells of her mother's milk can help treat the crown prince. I see your group of doctors are really lacking. Ah. An arrogant voice suddenly sounded behind Bailey Huangzhuang, interrupting Ning Hong's words. Everybody turned around only to see a man in his 40s appear in the crowd. The man who seemed to be around 40 wore an embroidered dark green robe, but even his top-notch robes couldn't hide his rather large pot belly. He was currently mocking Ning Hong. Spotting this man, Ning Hong's face instantly darkened. Pang Tangping. Pang Tangping smiled happily. I was originally driven away from this Imperial Physicians Institute, but who knew that you all would one day need my help? You had no medical ethics at all, you shouldn't have even been allowed into the Imperial Physician Institute. Ning Hong's voice was heavy. As he listened, Pang Tangping's eyes flashed with a trace of disdain. As long as I'm a doctor, the most important thing is being a doctor. How are my medical ethics no good? At least it's much better than this little girl who still stinks of her mother's milk that you let in. I've only left the Imperial Physicians Institute for a few years, but it seems the institute had already crumbled away enough to actually place its hopes on a child. Pang Tongping's speech was extremely proud, contempt clear in his eyes as his glance swept everybody in the Imperial Physicians Institute disdainfully. He still remembered the day he was driven out from this Imperial Physicians Institute. Today, it can finally be considered as the start of his revenge. Bailey Huangzhuang frowned a little. Why does this guy insist on dragging her into their conversation? She's actually getting shot even while lying down. Ah. Meanwhile, many of the pharmacists and doctors by the Crown Prince were all looking at Pang Tangping unhappily. This man was simply too arrogant. This situation in the East Palace was just because the Crown Prince's illness was never seen before, but with just a glance, he already started to look down on them all. Pang Tangping noticed Bailey Huangzhuang's frown and instantly started to taunt her. Little girl, what are you looking at? Hearing Pang Tangping's disdainful and provocative words, Bailey Huangzhuang's rosy face turned icy. I see a fat pig. What about you? Hearing such words, everybody was stunned. Nobody expected this refined and elegant little girl to have actually spat out such words. Only, dead fatty. Actually resembled Pang Tangping very much. Pang Tangping couldn't help but be surprised. This girl who he never took seriously had actually dared to talk back to him. I see this little girl really lacks discipline. Didn't your mother teach you any manners? He originally wanted to walk unbridledly in front of everybody, but having lost face to a little girl, Pang Tangping's words became even more impolite. Bailey Huangzhuang's voice was heavy and her ink-black pupils gleamed coldly. Who do you think you are? What qualifications do you think you have to do such a thing? Her icy voice was domineering as Bailey Huangzhuang raised her chin, a fearful, imposing aura erupting from her. Bailey Huangzhuang has been changed to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's original delicate and petite figure suddenly seemed to appear taller. Everybody looked at her, astonished. In a flash, they were already no longer able to regard Bailey Hongzhuang as a normal little girl that was ignorant of how the world works. Who is this girl? How could her aura be so extraordinary? I don't know, but if the guards allowed her inside, then her identity couldn't be ordinary. This Pang Tangping was unwillingly driven out of the institute, so now that the Imperial Pharmacist Institute is weak, it's only natural that he wanted revenge. I heard that after Pang Tangping was expelled from the institute, he ran into a highly skilled doctor, and his medical skills had greatly improved. If he really cured the Crown Prince, then Imperial Physician Ning definitely won't have an easy time. As soon as one discussion fell, another began. Nobody thought that the Crown Prince's illness would actually be so difficult, completely surpassing their own imaginations. They've tried a number of different techniques, but not one improved Xian Yuanhuan's condition. When Pang Tangping heard what Bailey Huangzhuang had said, he could only feel a burst of anger well up inside him as his right hand suddenly lashed out, prepared to give Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson. A layer of ice frosted over her charming face. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to teach Pang Tangping a lesson, Ning Hong had already blocked Pang Tangping's hand. Pang Tangping, you are one of the older generation, but you actually raised your hand towards a junior. Don't you have even the slightest bit of tolerance? Ning Hong's face was sullen. At that time, it was him who had driven Pang Tangping from the Imperial Physician Institute, but now he had come back only to behave atrociously. As long as he's here, he will never let Pang Tangping pollute the Imperial Physician Institute. Pang Tangping smacked Ning Hong's hand away. I'm not the same person I was in the Imperial Physicians Institute. You are not qualified to teach me. Seeing the two in a stalemate, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly spoke up. You said that I was young and inexperienced, with no skill in the art of medicine. Don't tell me you can cure the Crown Prince. Her cold voice was taunting. She really didn't know what kind of sickness this guy had to sprout such arrogant words without taking one look at Xian Yuanhuan's condition. Were there always this many idiots in the world? Hearing her words, Pang Tangping laughed contemptuously. How could he fall for such a simple taunt? If I can't cure the crown prince, then that means you also can't cure the crown prince. And if I did cure him? The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's rose into a barely noticeable smile, fixing her gaze on Pang Tangping as she asked questioningly. You're joking. Pang Tangping's face was full of mockery. Really, it was true that newborn calves don't fear the tiger. You take yourself to be exceptional at the art of healing despite only just knowing a bit of the basics. If you can cure the crown prince, then pigs can fly. Facing Pang Tangping's taunts, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't the slightest bit angry and only smiled sweetly. Since you are so sure, how about we make a bet? What bet? If I cure the crown prince, then you must pay me 100,000 gold coins and apologize to everybody on the scene. Her clear, exquisite face glowed with self-confidence and pride, as if she had victory already in her grasp. Her eyes shined provokingly, her imposing mannerism strengthening. Pang Tangping was about to agree to Bailey Hongzhuang, but when he heard the stakes at risk, his good was swallowed back down into his throat. 100,000 gold coins. That was not a small sum, even if he were to have sold all his belongings. But when he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's young face, he couldn't help but grow much more confident. Ning Hong was completely shocked. No one had thought that this little girl who was only deliberately creating trouble would make such a reckless bet. 100,000 gold coins. Almost nobody on the scene would choose to make such an huge bet, but when Bailey Hongzhuang asked Pang Tangping to apologize to everybody, they all felt a trace of warmth in their hearts. Little girl, betting 100,000 gold coins isn't a joke. Don't be impulsive. Ning Hong quickly advised her. In his view, Bailey Hongzhuang was young and impetuous. She was angry from Pang Tangping's words, so she made such a spur-of-the-moment bet. If the other party was your ordinary, lenient elder, then it would be nothing. But Pang Tangping wasn't. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang lost here today, then he would definitely force her to bankruptcy. Noticing the concern on Ning Hong's face, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. This physician had a good heart, reminding her to possibly prevent her from making serious mistake. Elder, this is my own discretion. The sound had just fallen when Bailey Hongzhuang turned to face Pang Tangping, taunting him. What's wrong? You don't dare to accept the bet. How could I not dare to? Pang Tangping's tone was hard. This girl was only about 15, what kind of medical skills could she have? He had never heard of such a girl in the whole country, so since she is willing to lose, then he'll help her. If you lose, then you must not only give me 100,000 gold coins, but also kneel down and call me grandpa. Pang Tangping's oily face grinned, he simply couldn't wait to see Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance as she begs him for mercy. Pang Tangping, don't go too far. Ning Hong's face was indignant. This guy was actually treating a junior so seriously, just disgraceful. Ah. Ning Hong, this matter has nothing to do with you. Instead of chirping here, it would be better to think about how you can keep your position. Pang Tangping mocked coldly. No problem, I can promise you. Bailey Hongzhuang's face didn't change as she replied indifferently. Watching Bailey Hongzhuang's confident approval, everybody's faces couldn't help but change slightly. Although they still believed that Bailey Hongzhuang would lose, they were still curious whether or not Pang Tangping would be able to cure the crown prince. Prepare to kowtow and call me grandpa. Pang Tangping smiled arrogantly before walking directly into the room. He had specifically waited until the group of doctors and physicians were helpless before he entered, in order to truly show off his skill. Since having the guidance of that medicinal expert, his skill in medicine had improved greatly and was now quite well known in Feng Bo country as a famous doctor. His self-confidence had been improved greatly. Ning Hong and the others, they were all no match for him. Bailey Hongzhuang followed, entering Xianyuan Huan's room. Master, will this guy really be unable to cure Xianyuan Huan? Little Black's voice was worried. If this Pang Tangping's skills were really as good as he claims, then wouldn't that mean? The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips rippled with a faint smile. This is my personal recipe. Besides me, nobody else can cure it. It wasn't because she was conceited, but due to her long and meticulous research on the misama poisoning powder. This was the powder that she used every means to develop. Even the elders back then had tried to detoxify it, but not one was successful. Since then, she had fallen dangerously ill a few times. But she was very interested in poisons, investing much of her time to it and had a certain degree of confidence with this. Easily earning 100,000 gold coins, we'll get tasty food. Little White said excitedly, Master, what lesson are you planning to give to this guy with no eyes? Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow. Just 100,000 gold coins alone is enough to force Pang Tangping into bankruptcy. Hasn't he already driven himself in a dead end? Pang Tangping had looked down on all the physicians and doctors in the East Palace. If he could cure Xianyuan Huan, it'd be a whole other thing, but since it was guaranteed that he could not, then when the time comes, he would turn into a joke. Even if his medical skills were good, after becoming a joke everybody laughs at, how could he continue to mingle with other doctors or physicians? Could it be that something's wrong with his brain? Little Black wondered. Bragging without even knowing his own ability, isn't he simply courting death? There will always be some idiots in the world that cannot be met with common sense. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled as Pang Tangping prepared to treat Xianyuan Huan. The moment Pang Tangping saw Xianyuan Huan's condition, his heart sank. Xianyuan Huan's entire body was covered in blisters, his original handsome face unrecognizable. His whole body was swollen, pale and skinny, clearly due to the torturous pain. Currently, Xianyuan Huan's eyes were closed. After withstanding the pain for 3 days, he no longer had even the energy to shout. From his sluggish breathing, Pang Tangping knew that his condition was absolutely terrible. If Xianyuan Huan's condition couldn't be treated today, then he might not wake up tomorrow. Ning Hong and the rest entered the room one after another, eager to see if this conceited Pang Tangping was really able to cure the crown prince or not. Xianyuan Huan's symptoms were simply outrageous. Even with all their experiences combined, they had still never encountered such a freakish disease. Some people had even suspected that the prince had done some unspeakable things and got cursed, otherwise, how would he suffer such tremendous pain? Pang Tangping began to feel Xianyuan Huan's pulse. His original arrogant expression had disappeared, the accumulations of fat on his face holding a trace of anxiety. Pang Tangping forcibly suppressed his feelings before to focus on his pulse. But as everybody keenly observed him, the hand that was taking the pulse trembled as cold sweat began to drip down his forehead. In my opinion, this Pang Tangping won't be able to cure the crown prince, but his tensed appearance really is funny. Ah! What a fool, running around arrogantly without even knowing his own skills. It's no wonder that he was kicked out of the institution. Such a great play to watch, I can't wait to see Pang Tangping fail. Before Pang Tangping appeared, everybody was looking forward to seeing the crown prince cured as soon as possible. But now, they were all looking forward to Pang Tangping failing to cure the crown prince. After all, they were all people who devoted themselves to studying medicine. Who would be happy to be treated with contempt by Pang Tangping? Nobody restrained their voices as they discussed loudly. Earlier, Pang Tangping had mocked them, so why would they give him face now? They all wanted to put him on the spot. Hearing the crowd's laughs, Pang Tangping couldn't help but swallow. Over the ages, he had seen many strange and bewildering diseases. But this one, he had never seen before. Moreover, Xianyuan Huan's pulse was so chaotic that he couldn't find a clue on where the problem lies. What is this weird disease? Pang Tangping thought secretly. No matter how he thought, facing such a challenge, he had absolutely no idea what to do. It looks like you're unable to cure him. A cold and indifferent voice sounded from Bailey Hongzhuang's lips, her clear, delicate face holding a small smile. She looked at Pang Tangping, her beauty resembling a painting. Only, this beautiful, smiling face in Pang Tangping's eyes turned into undisguised ridicule. Earlier, he was brimming with confidence, but now, he was helpless. Isn't this just tantamount to pulling his own mouth? Who says I can't treat him? Pang Tangping puffed out his chest, stressing every word he spoke. The Crown Prince's situation was caused by poison, so as long as he eats my omnipotent detoxification pill, his condition will definitely improve. After declaring his words, Pang Tangping's heart beat like a drum. Other than poison, there's no other things that could have caused such strange symptoms. In any case, he can't find a way to treat him, so delaying it would be safe. He refuses to die like a horse. TL note, to abandon hope. Next, Pang Tangping took out a black pill from his medicine box and prepared to feed it to Xianyuan Huan. Suddenly, a voice shouted in the crowd, "Physician Pang, don't do it. I already tried feeding the Crown Prince an omnipotent detoxification pill." Hearing the words, everybody turned to look at the speaker. The speaker cared none about his authenticity as he continued to shout, "Physician Pang's name is renowned and outstanding. I just so happened to have one of your omnipotent detoxification pills and fed it to the Crown Prince." The man spread his hands, but it was useless. Pang Tangping's face instantly turned awkward. Just now, he had said that the Crown Prince's condition would definitely improve if he ate the omnipotent detoxification, but now that his lie has been exposed, he had absolutely no idea what to do next. The crowd began to laugh. This Pang Tangping really didn't know when to step down. Pang Tangping, evidently, your godly doctor title was just a false reputation, ah. Before, Pang Tangping had taunted him in front of everybody. Now, Ning Hong naturally wanted revenge. Pang Tangping's pale face went from white to red, and red to blue. His whole body was stiff as he stood there, as if he had gone stupid. "Since you can't treat him, don't block my way." Bailey Honghang spoke up. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang speak, Pang Tangping seemed to have finally found a way out as he hastily replied scornfully, "I was unable to cure the Crown Prince, so how could you?" Pang Tangping goaded Bailey Hongzhuang, wanting to force her to agree in anger. "The higher claim you make, the harder you'll fall, and she would end up in the same situation as him." Bailey Hongzhuang looked down at Pang Tangping's pale face, a small smile on her lips. Her ink-black eyes reflected a quiet beauty like a calm yet elegant pond that shined with wisdom. Pang Tangping couldn't help but feel as if all of his plants were stripped down and exposed, facing those two eyes. However, Bailey Hongzhuang just smiled, "I can." Pang Tangping gawked, his eyes revealing a wild joy. He must have thought wrong earlier. After all, how could a child this rash actually understand his plans? Everybody in the crowd sighed with regret. Nobody believed that Bailey Hongzhuang could cure the Crown Prince, and all pitied her for forcing herself into such an awkward situation. "You can't cure it." Pang Tangping sneered, "Old ginger is spicier than young ginger." TL note, experience counts. The smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's face still remained as she calmly walked to Xianyuan Huan's bed. Seeing the weak to the extreme Xianyuan Huan, her face didn't have even a hint of guilt. Watching Bailey Hongzhuang begin by taking the pulse, Ning Hong nodded. At least this girl knows these primary skills. Pang Tangping sneered as he waited in anticipation to see what Bailey Hongzhuang would look like with no hope left. Now all he was doing was waiting for her to fail. Once Bailey Hongzhuang finished taking Xianyuan Huan's pulse, she began to check the pustules all over his body, her face flushed with a serious look. The methodical, meticulous, orderly way in which Bailey Hongzhuang treated him was not that of a fledgling, little, 15-year-old girl, but rather it was as if she had been practicing medicine for many, many years more than her age. In the way that all those experts had not, Bailey Hongzhuang had a unique style of treatment that certainly caught many people's attention. Those who had once belittled Bailey Hongzhuang now stared in shock and awe, wondering what magical methods she had used to cure Xianyuan Huan. After a while, Bailey Hongzhuang stopped moving her hands and turned around to face the crowd. "Stop putting on airs already, you can't cure it. Admit it." Pang Tangping taunted her. After all, this girl was all talk and no show. She really didn't have any skill. Bailey Huangzhuang put on a smug smile and raised an eyebrow. Who says I can't cure him? You don't believe me? Just because you can't doesn't mean I can't. Don't put me on the same level as you. Looking at Bailey Huangzhuang's proud, smug face made Pang Tangping burst out in anger. Then cure him. If you aren't able to cure him, then try your best to scrape up 100,000 gold coins and bow down to me. All talk, no skill, Bailey Huangzhuang said dismally. Ning Hong stared at Bailey Huangzhuang, mystified by the strange type of medical treatment. Bailey Huangzhuang must have been taught very well by an extreme expert. Despite how good her teachers were, he still did not believe that Bailey Huangzhuang could cure this illness. Indeed, the crown prince is poisoned, Bailey Huangzhuang said slowly. Anyone could figure that out. Who doesn't know that? Pang Tangping exclaimed, annoyed. This illness of the crown prince only has one explanation, poison. But Bailey Huangzhuang's next words made everybody snap up in attention. However, I have coincidentally seen another similar case to this one, and thus understands how to treat this. Hearing her words, everybody was in an uproar. Bailey Huangzhuang actually knows how to heal him. If she was boasting, then this Bailey Huangzhuang would really be a complete fool. But if she wasn't? Bailey Huangzhuang opened up her medicine bag to take out a needle box, opening the needle box as well. Glittering silver needles of all different sizes suddenly appeared in the crowd's vision. Watching such a scene, everybody's faces turned into blatant shock. This couldn't be the lost art of acupuncture, could it? Those silver needles looked exactly like the ones described in the ancient texts, but the art of acupuncture had disappeared several hundred years ago. Any doctor or physician in the Xingxua continent would know what the word, acupuncture, really meant. It was a technique regarded as on the level of gods by the outside world. Unfortunately, having been lost for more than a few hundred years, although they've all heard of its prestige, none one of them had actually ever seen it before. However, the needles in the box held in Bailey Huangzhuang's arms were clearly the ones used in acupuncture. Ning Hong's eyes were also wide as he stared intently at Bailey Huangzhuang. He was extremely curious to see if this little girl truly had skill, or was only causing trouble. Ignoring the stunned looks from the crowd, Bailey Huangzhuang directly pulled her needles out from the box and started to quickly and accurately puncture Xianyuanhuan's acupuncture points. Acupuncture was first created by her Bailey family, so it was only natural as head to have mastered the art of acupuncture. With such mastery, Xianyuanhuan's treatment flowed without a hitch. Watching as Bailey Huangzhuang stuck needles into Xianyuanhuan, everybody's hearts couldn't help but jump into their throats. This was the crown prince, ah. If those needles worsens the crown prince's condition, then be careful of your head.